we did learn this weekend that my dog, or our dog, is a great camping dog.
Oh, that's
That helps.
So if you ever need a dog to camp with, you can totally borrow mine.
You borrow? I have one of each. I have a black lab that barks at everybody. And then I have a golden retriever that just is a party, he's the little party guy. He's happy. He's a great camping dog.
Good evening, counselors all, members of the public, staff, and Michelle from Barry Dunn. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome all to this work session, June 27, 2022. It looks like we are down one counselor, Counselor Osborne, who I believe has an unexcused absence. I did not receive anything. Did you, Michelle or Roberta? So we are minus Counselor Osborne tonight. Start with the mayor's report. A week from today, 4th of July, with everything. I hope you've found an opportunity to volunteer if you're going to be in town. And I want to encourage you all to get your buttons, wear your buttons, $2 a piece. They're downstairs in City Hall. We will be walking. How many of you are planning to join me to walk in the parade? Okay, 2 for sure.
I'm on the fence.
I don't think I can.
So the plan is we will meet in the northwest corner of the city park at 10:30. Okay, that's the corner where there's nothing there. There's no tennis court, there's no volleyball pit, there's no gazebo. It's the vacant corner closest to the elementary school. And joining us, I've been inviting counselors, I've been inviting mayors and commissioners. So far, I've received confirmation that Heather Buck will be joining us, along with her daughter. So if you have family members that want to walk with you, please invite them to do so. And Lucy Venice, Mayor Eugene, will be joining us. And I've even heard that Senator Manning is coming down, but I don't think he's going to be walking with our group. So we will have some young people carrying banners in front of us, and then we'll walk behind them and we'll wave. If you have something, candy you want to throw out, just remember the rules. You've got to go all the way to the sidewalk and basically give it or drop it, not to throw it in the middle of the street. Wear anything patriotic you'd like to wear. Be sure and bring a water bottle, because it's a little over a mile walk and it takes a good hour at the pace we go. So we'll meet there at 10:30, then we'll meander our way down to 9th Avenue, around the corner, be ready to go. It's a lot of fun. So, and even if you thought you couldn't make it tonight, but all of a sudden next week you decide, I can make it, just show up. Okay? We'll have a good time. And then on the 5th of July, we are welcoming the Finland team to Cresswell. So we'll be sending school buses up in the morning to pick them up, bring them back, get them adjusted to their hotels, and then they'll begin working out. Probably the next day, we will have a banner that goes up on July 5th, right over the one that's currently hanging for the 4th of July, and it'll be welcoming the Finnish team on July 8th. If you can come out, that's the official open house. July 8th from 4 to 6:30 at the high school. The Sanapak duck truck will be positioned back on the track and field. We'll have barbecue, hot dogs and hamburgers, first 250 people. We're working on getting some actual Olympic athletes to come to Cresswell and participate, maybe race against some of our local high school stars. You'll get a chance to meet some of the Finnish athletes. It's going to be a fun event, July 8th. So if you're able to come out, please do. Last week, when Michelle and Kevin and I met for our regular meeting to plan the agendas out, Michelle brought an item to our attention that we agreed was very pertinent that you get some information on. And at this point, it's just that, it's just brand new information. It's important that you're here. There was no time to get it on the agenda. No decisions are necessary at this point, but it's information. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. It has to do with our wastewater treatment plant permit and also some sewer mains that are going in with Boulder Butte subdivision. And so I've asked Cliff to please give you the particulars on it since he's the expert and I'm just someone who's heard a lot of news, so if Cliff wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I actually sat down and kind of drafted up a memo. I wasn't sure where everybody was at in their understanding of the wastewater plant and how we've got from then to now. So I'm just gonna start going through it. We have some ongoing issues that's associated with our wastewater treatment plant. As some of you may know, our plant is a lagoon-type system. It's made up of 3 10-acre facultative lagoons, and they simply use biological action for the treatment process. Over the course of time, our city it's grown, our treatment plant, it still has the same capabilities it had back in, the 80s. We've done some upgrades to it, but it's still the same style treatment plant that we've always had. So we're not able to treat our discharge stream to any higher standards than what we currently are producing or what we have produced for the last 40 years, 50 years. DEQ is aware of this, and they've been aware of it. And in 1998, they issued what's called a mutual agreement and order. And it's over and above. So DEQ issues a permit that has their standards that you have to meet for your effluent. And we were having some difficulties with that. And so in 98, they issued this mutual agreement and order. And it allowed us to operate at a lower regulatory level than what our original permit allowed us to. Then in 03, this is just a bunch of background, I'll get to the. In 03, they amended the mutual agreement and order, and it required a 2-phase upgrade at the existing plant. So in 2006, we completed that first phase of required upgrades. And so we stayed in compliance with that issued MAO. The second phase, which is really the important part of this, has a section in the agreement that DEQ needed to fulfill. They were to do a study of the coast fork of the Willamette and determine what the TMDL is, which is the total maximum daily load for the river. And they never fulfilled that requirement within that agreement. And they cited their lack of funding and employees and what everybody has for, issues going forward. So this in turn did not trigger that second phase of upgrades at the plant. The scheduled upgrades that were scheduled to be done was to relocate our effluent discharge directly out to the coast fork of the Willamette. Because in theory, larger body of water can take, larger loading rate from our wastewater plant. DEQ has since came back and told us that the coast fork of the Willamette is a dissolved oxygen deficient river and it cannot take any additional loading. So where we're at is, and we've known this for quite some time, is some sort of a different treatment system on our plant that would be able to treat at a much higher level so it could remove enough of the contaminants that we could discharge into. We discharge into Camas Creek right now, which is a small tributary. And so a newer upgraded plant would allow us to treat at a much higher level to be able to meet our permit. Currently, the permit that we're operating under expired in November of 2019. And it's not unusual for DEQ to be really behind on renewing those permits. I believe the city of Eugene might be like 15 years behind in their renewal. Anyway, they've been in the process of issuing us a new one for the last couple of years. And we've been in lots of conversations with them, lots of meetings. Most of it is just informational. There's hasn't been any decisions made on what we have to do, what we're going to do. It's been kind of a back and forth between us, our engineers, and DEQ, just kind of laying the groundwork on what this permit will look like. So in those meetings, they've made us aware that there's some additional regulations that we're gonna have to meet with a new permit. Every time you go down the road, there's a new regulation. That's just how it goes. So they're going to want to amend our original permit and the MAO, and that's going to reflect newer and tighter regulations for our outgoing effluent from the wastewater plant. A couple of the new regulations is they're going to require ammonia removal, which is not required at the moment. And they're also going to require thermal loading, which is basically temperature of the outgoing effluent. We haven't gone down the path of how we're fixing those issues, but those are going to be within the permit that we're going to have to address. And currently our plant obviously can't do those things. So in our last meeting, we talked about what the permit might look like, what the MIO might look like. And when you start getting into regulatory issues that you can't meet, they come up with a compliance schedule. And they start naming off dates and times and years when you will meet X, Y, Z and continue on through this permit so that you can meet the regulations at the end of it. Usually they're 6, 8, 9 years long. We don't know what it is yet. We're just in that kind of back and forth period. And so the last time we met, they dropped kind of a bomb on us because we had always talked about the treatment plant and what the upgrades were needed out there. In the last meeting, they referenced our old collection system, which is basically like 16 blocks of downtown. That was all installed in like between 1961 and 1962. It's old piping. It's not that it's defunct, but it has issues. It has a bunch of cracks in it, and that old piping, the bells aren't real tight, so it takes in I&I, which is inflow and infiltration. And they want us to address that. And they're wanting to put that in the permit. That's probably a compliance schedule issue. That's very expensive. This is still just conversation, but we haven't received anything hard back from them yet. So at this point, we're waiting on a draft of that permit, the MAO. We're going to be able to have a comment period, try to do some rebuttal back with them, try to figure out what is feasible, what's economical, what we can afford, how long out this is going to be for a compliance schedule. So we're waiting on that information back from them so we can review it along with our engineer. So you kind of got the overall bad news of, which I think everybody knew, that our wastewater plant was going to need an upgrade. I think everybody's aware of that. The piping, nobody knew, including us. So that's one thing we're going to try to push back on. See if we can't, make that extended out several years past like completion of treatment plant or something where we can afford to kind of bite off, chunks at a time. So up to now, in this whole process, we've had another issue arise. We've had a subdivision request, which Michelle kind of touched on, the Boulder Butte subdivision out on 10th Street. And one of the steps in allowing a subdivision to be built is the engineered plans always have to be submitted to DEQ for review. And they review them not only for engineering and how they're installed to make sure it's consistent with DEQ rules and regulations, they also review them for loading on your treatment plant and for your piping if it has capacity. So they reviewed them. And they responded back in kind of a wishy-washy way, saying that they don't believe our current systems have the capacity to support additional loading, which may require upgrades of our systems. So basically, they're saying our old plant can't handle new loading and we need to repair it before we get additional buildings. That's just kind of cutting to the chase. I don't know that that's exactly where we're at, but that's what they've alluded to.
Cliff, how big is that subdivision proposal?
It's 20 houses. And that only, it's two things. It only takes in the west side of I-5 because the east side's on a different system. And it also only includes what they constitute a main line extension. So if there was already a sewer line in the frontage and you wanted one additional lot and just put in a lateral, then that doesn't count. That doesn't have to go through DEQ for approval, and you can do like a onesie, twosie house thing as long as there's a main in front of it. But if you have to extend the system, that goes for review. So at this point, we really don't have anything official from them. We don't have anything back from them other than the general conversation that I've told you about. It doesn't sound real cheery at the moment. We're gonna have that chance to review and comment, get back to them. Our engineers are working on that at the moment. We're going through all of our sampling, reporting, all of our loading, all of our flows for the last 10 years. We're trying to figure out exactly where we're at with that. We're penciling out how much a 20 house subdivision would add in loading, and we're trying to get prepared and give DEQ the most facts that we can give them so that they can make, an educated decision. I don't know that that's gonna help anything or not, but the issue, besides a possible moratorium, that's what it looks like. They're not saying that, but that's what it looks like. Is this subdivision has been in the works for a year and a half. And the contractor has purchased the property, purchased the piping, paid for the engineering, has close to $500,000 wrapped up into this, and now DEQ is saying possibly you can't build it. Which is a surprise to us because since I've worked here, DEQ, which is 21 years in July, has never alluded that we were going to be restricted in any way, that we weren't going to have capacity. They've never brought that to light, so it's really kind of a new development. The last subdivision went in 2020. I have a letter from DEQ saying full bill of health, build away. No additional review required, no questions asked. So it's kind of a bomb drop, but we're gonna work through it. Don't know where we're at. What I do know is some of those upgrades I mentioned will be required and we'll have to fund them. And that's what we're gonna face in the future.
And that funding is going to be significant. It's not going to be in the thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be in the millions and tens of millions of dollars. So,
And that's the funding to replace piping and do upgrade, not replace it, but upgrade it.
It depends.
well, the upgrade at the treatment plant, we have been looking at, and we've been putting money in reserves for, and we've been paying down debt so that we can hopefully keep the cost of the sewer services as low as possible. So we have, that one we know and had planned for, but there's additional costs now that are coming out of discussions with DEQ. Correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, the wording on what the plant's gonna be could be worded several different ways. It could be a new plant, it could be upgraded, it could be whatever. The bottom line is we have a facilities plan for wastewater, which included all of the collection system and the treatment system from 2014. We're now 2022, and DEQ doesn't like our facilities plan, the portion of the treatment, because we called for a new treatment plan. Well, they think it's dated, and they want us to do a new section in that facilities plan, which is just a small portion of it. But we're gonna go back and look at that, because it's a requirement for one, but what is called out in the 2014 facilities plan may not be what we do today. But whatever it is, it will be upgraded or new and expensive,
Because of the ammonia and the
because the ammonia removal and the thermal loading.
thermal loading. So those things were not part of the plan that we did when we did the master planning a few years ago, because we didn't know that they were going to be looking at this.
Right, when that facilities plan was written, the treatment plant was always addressed in it and given some pricing and given attention to within the facilities plan on what it might look like. But plan number A was always to run a new pipeline out to the river so that we could discharge at a higher rate. And that got knocked out right off the bat, so we went to plan B and now probably plan C.
And so for the funding, we'll be looking at grants, we'll be looking at loans. But depending on the amount of additional monies needed, we may need to look at other funding sources as well, a bond or something like that. You know, we're looking at $15 million in our plan. If you add the downtown collection to it, that's in the neighborhood of another $10 million. And if you look at another, depending on what they say for the ammonia and the thermal loading, you can look at additional money on top of that. I don't know what that would cost, but you need to know that we're looking at significant amounts of money, and it will require work on your part as counselors to either help us lobby at the state level for additional funding, or lobby the constituency here in Cresswell for a bond. One of the two, probably. So you needed to hear what's going on and start thinking in those terms. Anything else?
That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Counselors, do you have any questions for Cliff or Michelle? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Just one, can we receive a copy of the memo that you typed
Yeah.
up for
Yeah.
whenever you get a chance?
I'll just give it to Roberta. Yeah.
Okay, so on to our committee report. Administration and Finance Committee, do we have a report?
Administration
Sorry,
and finance
no,
would be-
no report tonight. Mayor.
Sorry.
Public Safety Committee.
Yeah, so I have the last email update, and I would probably refer to my fellow committee member. Unfortunately, the time had changed and I was not able to make it. But Saturday, June 18th, it was to be 4 incoming flights with 2,000 pounds of cargo. And then Sunday was June 19th, was 4 outgoing flights with 1,000 pounds scheduled to depart.
And they ended up with just 800 pounds.
800
And
pounds?
a couple planes, yeah, and they didn't need help, they did a good job.
Yeah.
Manager Shelley probably knows
that
more.
weather was a hindrance for us.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
And they added 2 other airports.
Okay. So they added bend and mattress. So there ended up being 5 airports for the 10,000 pounds of the sacks of potatoes, onions, and carrots, which the pilots really were not happy with the onions because it really smelled like the airplanes. But we did end up with one airplane that was able to get in with the weather. So he brought in 800 pounds of food. And then we dispersed it with 3 airplanes. So the first one went to Myrtle Creek, and I'm trying to remember where the other 2 went. But it was a really good plan. We've learned some things to do a little bit differently. The way we had it staged was it worked really well because it was a bad day. Nobody was flying, so we pretty much had the round to ourselves. And then they learned quite a bit about the processes and what we need to do. So all in all, and I know Aurora and Albany, they got their allotted food in and out. The weather was better, and of course, Bend and Madras is always a lot sunnier than we are. So. And we had one volunteer who was a pilot who was going to go to Northern California, but they canceled that flight. So he came and he helped us load and unload. And then Joel was there and myself.
Thank you. So I have a question. If we have a natural disaster and it falls during half of the time of the year in Oregon or more, when it is bad weather, and it could be bad weather for a week, then do we have a plan for how do we get supplies to Crestville and how do we get them out if we can't fly during inclement weather?
You would utilize different aircraft. You would utilize pilots that are IFR rated, instrument rated. But due to this exercise, you didn't want to create a hazard, to practice a hazard. So in that case, we would either do helicopters or we would do bigger airplanes that are IFR capable. Not all the pilots were. And some of them were really uncomfortable with, thunderstorms are real tough. So you would look at it totally different because then it would be an urgent nature and this was just a practice.
Yeah, I would think that'd be one of the things I would scratch my head about is, well, what if we have bad weather and it lasts for a week and we're grounded? I'm looking over here because I'm not the chair of this committee.
Well, that's all I had to report.
Oh, Michelle.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that they did too, though, was they did flights that checked out highways and overpasses and things like that as part of the drill. And of course, they were all in perfect condition, but that was supposed to be something that was done earlier on in the drill. So there would maybe be the ability to still truck some things, maybe train some things, depending on how severe the earthquake was and where it hit and such as that. But I think Shelley's comments about the strategy would change as far as flying the materials as well is a good bit of information to have.
Okay.
They did do simulated the weekend before. They had, I believe, 20 aircraft that went out all through Oregon to check on the bridges and the dams and where they thought from that trajectory, looking with that mindset, where could be the problems. So they're working on a big PowerPoint presentation and a report.
Okay. So is this largely dependent upon volunteer pilots in local?
This exercise did, yes, it was all volunteer. They paid for their own fuel, they volunteered all their time. We made goodie bags for them, hydration bags for them, so that in the case that it would really happen, you'd want to keep your pilots
hydrated and, they may be going to 5 different airports. So we had like jerky sticks and things like that for them. So, and again, it was an exercise to see where we were and what we didn't think of and what we need to prepare for better.
I think one of the issues too would be, many of these pilots don't live close to the airport necessarily, to where depending on the severity and the road situation, they may never be able to get here.
Correct.
So a lot of, I suppose if we do get one, we'll look back and say, we've sure learned a lot now that it's happened.
There's a lot of moving pieces.
A lot of, literally.
But it's
moving
good,
pieces.
it's good to do this kind of drill.
Yeah.
Because as Shelley said, they learn things. Even when it's not a situation where everything has fallen apart, you learn things, and that helps you prepare better. So it was a good drill to have, and I'm glad we were able to participate in it.
Good. Okay, let's go to Transportation and Public Works Committee. Mr. Prachu.
All right. I would like to maybe suggest that we work our way backwards. I know that you've all had a chance to look at the materials and such, and so rather than reviewing them again the other way, if Jim wouldn't mind flashing to the acknowledgements, what I'd like to do is just start off by acknowledging our staff, and I'm going to really start off with Jim, who's really done a tremendous job at assembling the information, compiling the information that the committee has asked for and requested along the way. He did it during a time mostly when we were still doing budgeting and other things within the city, so I know that he has done a marvelous and fantastic job. So thank you, Jim, for that. I really appreciate that. And also Cliff, who has given a lot of input along the way, and Michelle, who's directed our staff along the way. Just really appreciate the support that you've given this committee. I was going to make a joke. This is where the rubber kind of meets the road. And here we are after all this time, ready to kind of like give you the output of what the committee has done in the work. So. And then to the committee members themselves who show up and give us the input that we needed. Most everybody was able to make most meetings in some fashion or another, and so I feel that the input is rounded and solid. We've heard from residents, we've heard, people that, have businesses and things like that. I just feel like between, and when I say residents, I'm just like myself, I'm just a resident, I may, so, but, and then we will hear from folks, I'm sure, along the way here, so, but as far as committee goes, we had a really good, strong committee, I thought, so thank you for that. And I would invite Dawn, if you're interested, you can come to the table and hang out with us, or you can stay there, it's up to you, or Cliff, and invite you. So anyway, and then thank you also to counselors, Counselor Shuck and our secretary, who kept also very good notes for us along the way. It was a big help. And then thank you for your trust in me, committee, for selecting me as your chair. You didn't have to, but I appreciate the vote of confidence on that. I thought it was going to be a really interesting challenge. So with all of that said, if you've had a chance to look at things, then you know that there was essentially a recommendation that we came up with, and that recommendation is a combination of two different funding mechanisms. One that's called a LID, it's a local improvement district, and essentially the way that works is that in any project that you do, you will have some people that are affected by it, residents, businesses, such that they will gain from the increase in property value when the streets are done, and from all that. So they pitch in. I think, was it 20%, I think, is roundabout what that number is. And that would be, I'll make sure I say this correctly, because it's sidewalks, curbs, gutters?
Yep.
Okay, got it. So Yes.
I'm just thinking through the,
Mhm.
okay, sidewalks and curb, like, okay, oh, yeah, that's that.
It's funny because you think they go hand in hand, and they kind of do, but they're kind of called out separately as.
So they're not paying for the road.
No
They're paying
road,
for the
yeah.
sidewalk, the curb, and the gutter, okay.
So, and so that's part of the funding mechanism that we would be at play here. And then for the other part of it, then what we are recommending is what's known as a transportation utility fee. It's another fee that, like the police and public safety fee, appears on the utility bill. And there's a different kind of model of the way that works essentially, which we can, we'll go through and talk about. And so that's kind of, those two combined are what we are looking at. And then this is where we can flash back to the beginning, Jim, on I would say the first slide after the opening picture there, the one that talks about what is it that we're actually trying to accomplish here. And so I know I went backwards, now I'm bringing you back to what it is that we're really, what is the void, what is the gap, what is it that we're trying to do? And $255,000 is the annual amount of money that we're kind of coming up short right now. We've got some money, in different areas that come in, which is kind of spelled out on the next slide. But with $26 million in total projects out there, we are basically only able to do a certain amount per every couple of years or something like that anyway. But to do that and save up the money and then do the project, 255 was the amount that we were kind of the magic amount that we were trying to figure out how to fund. Any questions at this point, like as far as any of that goes, or you want me to just keep going and then ask your questions at the end, or?
Well, I have a question, right?
Yeah.
What you said, so, and I was starting to do the math, but I'm not going to. So if we take the 26 million, and that's over a 20-year period, and then every 10 years, we can save up 1.8 million, then my math says in 20 years, we'll have 3.6 million. So I would subtract 26 million, subtract 3.6, come up with 22 something or another. And then we're saying 255,000 a year for 20 years makes up that gap.
It's, so I'll explain further. So we'll never be able to do the 26 million in a 20-year period. Every time we do these master plans, there's way more projects than we can fund. However, we do have a capacity that will let us get a street project done about every 3 years if we have the magic amount of funding. There's more layers to this because as you fund street projects, you also have to have water and sewer money set aside, because when you rip the street up, you're going to do the sewer and water projects at the same time. It just makes more sense. So that's taken in consideration our capacity. Currently, we don't even have 3 years worth of, we don't have the funding to do a project every 3 years. That being said, we also talked about the other funding mechanisms that pay for the streets. So some of the funding will be paid through SDCs, but the monies that we don't have, or the project costs that can't be funded by SDCs, will have to be funded by reserves. So that's kind of how we got to that 255,000 a year shortfall. It's just the amount of reserves we need every year to do a project every 3 years.
So the 255K represents what we're short over a 3-year period from having funding in reserves.
Correct. And that's even taking into consideration those local improvement districts.
And that's the 255 times 3 years is what you need to do a project every 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Good question, though.
That's including the LIDs?
That's including the LIDs.
We're still that far short?
Yes.
That's why we had
Yes,
to do the
I-
tough and the LED.
That shows you
That's
just
the
how.
tough makes up
The
that.
tough makes up that, exactly,
Okay.
which Kevin will get to the
In a minute.
explanation in a minute of where we got that, but yeah. So using our current sources of funding plus estimated SDCs in the future, the 255 is what we're short annually.
Okay?
I hope that's okay.
No, that's totally fine. And in fact, I really like the committee and folks to jump in, and I want you guys to jump in with your questions, because that's really important here. It's actually one of the reasons, we wanted to make sure that you had this material to come chew on and everything, so, because it's a lot of stuff here. So the current funding mechanisms that Jim has up there now, but let's see here. What page? That's the, I'll make sure I'm lined up here.
It's just the next page.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's right after the.
okay, okay. Thanks. So the state gas tax and vehicle registration fees provide $450K. So then our street operating costs and street funds are $330,000 a year. And then the reserves that we would have then left over out of that money is the 120. So between the 120 in reserves plus ODOT state and exchange grants, we have about the ability to set aside 180. Is that right, Jim? Okay. So again, extra 255 to that 180 would get us where we need to be. So
then, if we say every 3 years we have enough, then that's 540,000 plus whatever we have from SDCs, and that allows us to do something every 3 years.
But SDCs can only be used for new. They
For,
cannot,
So that was-
not for new,
or
for,
the opposite,
no, it can only be used for
improve
capacity.
capacity, not
Improve
repair.
capacity, that's
So that
right.
brought up a question of mine. So we
Like-
did Fifth Street and we did D Street. Could we use SDCs for those streets? Because that was not new, that was replacing. I don't know, did we?
Question for Cliff.
You can use it for the percentage that it is over in capacity. So to make it easy, if it was a 50-foot wide original street and we made it 60-foot wide, you could pay for the 10 feet.
If it had no sidewalks and we put in new sidewalks, we could pay for the sidewalks?
If it's a
No,
replacement, no, it has to be additional
Well,
capacity. larger.
I mean, there were no sidewalks there initially, let's say, and we put in sidewalks.
no, you
No.
can't use, we don't have SDCs for sidewalks to
Okay.
start with. We have SDCs for streets, water, and sewer.
So what about water and sewer? If we had certain pipes in there and we have to put in bigger pipes, then we can pay for that additional.
Percentage of overage.
Okay, well, that helps.
It's helpful.
Helps me to wrap my head around what we're talking about, okay?
All right, we'll slide over to the next one then. So the other funding mechanisms we just talked about, the system development charges actually, so I think that we can probably skip past that one. You might remember that we talked last year about a local gas tax. And council opted not to go that route, and so this time it came around again as, one of the options to consider and such. For a lot of the reasons that are up there, it didn't feel quite as palatable as it did the year before, and didn't think that it was something that would stand the test of trying to go before voters right now. Plus the idea that, it's a regressive tax. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing because I didn't realize that. Something that essentially has the potential to affect middle, lower income people more than above. So it's something to kind of think about that I
So
hadn't
could you
before.
explain that one a little bit more?
Yeah, actually.
I wrestled with this afternoon and thought, I just need a further explanation about that.
Yeah, I actually had to look it up in myself, and essentially it is that. It's just that some taxes have the ability to affect a certain class of people more. So like if you have a lot of money and then a 3-cent tax comes along, it's probably not as big, you can absorb it and such, but it might, yeah.
Actually, it is regressive because people who cannot afford a new car will end up paying more for gas because they will have lower gas mileage. And people who can afford a new car will pay less for gas and pay less gas tax because they'll have electric vehicles. So that's why it's regressive, is because people who have clunker cars will pay more because of the low gas mileage of those clunker cars.
I thought of, and this may be off base, I thought, more and more people are working from home. But some jobs allow you to work from home. A lot of lower wage paying jobs, you have to show up to make the
Correct.
burgers or work in the
Absolutely.
There's a
factory.
good example.
That's another good example. You have to pay more tax because you have to drive.
You're having to drive all the time.
Yeah, that's an excellent example as well.
Okay, well, I had not thought of that, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it today. Don, back there.
Well, in the simplest terms, it's regressive because a higher proportion or a higher proportion of a given person's income, if they're a low-income person, is dedicated to that tax than a higher income person. But all the nuances that we're currently experiencing, gas taxes, right, it's even exacerbated the pure regressiveness of it.
Okay. Well, you've all expanded my education tonight. Thank you.
Same here, actually, because I did, yeah, did you have a question, Counselor?
Well, a question or a comment. So, and I think Michelle touched on this with electric vehicles. I mean, I could see them being more popular in the future, so that would change if a gas tax ever occurred. You would have individuals, that would buy electric vehicles and then not opting for gas. So that brought up, I don't know a lot about it, but like charging stations, like how could that be taxed? So that's just something for the future,
Yeah, I think that
as
it
the
was
electric car came up.
Yeah.
the vehicle.
That's
On the
something on the
electric bill.
LOC priority
Yeah.
list, yeah.
And you certainly can't charge people for using their home charging systems either,
Right.
so it's
Right.
a little bit,
So it's an
Right.
interesting
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, really the only pro that the committee really embraced about the gas tax as an option was that we would capture folks that don't live here
Right.
coming into the city using city services and buying gas, and we
Yeah.
could tax them. That's the only thing, we discussed it quite a bit. But Dawn's background with ODOT and Bill, of course, being at the owner of the local station, helped us understand that quite a bit. So we may be helping those higher income people that can afford the electric car, when really our goal is to have a fair and equal way to spread out the cost of road improvement to all citizens.
the committee paid very special attention to the charge and the word sustainable, and making sure that our funding options could stand the test of time. So this was one that we thought was like a dwindling resource. If we did do it, it wouldn't be there forever by any means, so.
Well, I kind of also have the tie with the other slide that you had with the state gas tax, if that would do any difference later with
Oh.
electric vehicles.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good question, yeah.
That looked like quite a bit of money.
Yeah. All right, flip to the next one then. So
Can we
the,
note that Norma Jean just joined the
Yes.
meeting?
Note that Councillor Osborne has joined our meeting. Welcome. Okay.
all right, so we're getting just to the good part, the transportation utility fee. So this is the thing next to the LID that we're recommending. It has the potential to bring in the amount that we're looking for. And this would be what would work out to an additional $1.25. Now, these are numbers that are somewhat preliminary. It would be at the council's consensus on moving forward that we would have staff investigating the true, actual costs here, but these are rough numbers. Is that right? How you would say, Jim?
Yeah, it's
Fairly, yeah.
comes in the 255,000.
Yeah.
And taking the trip generations that were in the STC rate study that we just did in 2020. It was a quick back of the envelope calculation, but good ballpark.
Yeah. So, and then businesses, they generate more trips, so they pay in a different way. And so there's a mechanism for calculating that out. The other pro to it is that it's something that we can do as a council. So if we feel that it's the right thing for Crestwell, we can enact that, just us. And then it's not affected by the switch to electric vehicles. The cons, it is another thing on the bill. So there's that. And then it may discourage certain types of development, possibly. I don't know. It's just something to think about, but I don't know if it would or not.
Yeah, we just don't know.
So certain types of development, meaning
Business.
hotels or apartment buildings?
Any that would have to pay, so if it's square footage based, right? Yeah, so,
Probably industrial.
yeah.
That's probably the one that would be hit the most. When we put a transportation utility fee in Toledo, the industry that was hit the hardest was the mill, because it had the most trips. And it had trucks that were degrading the streets at a great rate. So those things are taken into consideration. So the ones that's mostly what would probably be discouraged are trucking type of industry,
So,
industry that's trucking dependent. How about if I say it that way?
Okay.
That makes sense.
so individuals who rent an apartment, they would pay $1.25, or would it be the owner of the apartment complex?
Who pays the water meter?
Yeah, we
Because
would
it
do
comes
it
on
the
our
same way
utility.
that we do the public safety fee.
Uh-huh.
So one dwelling unit equals one unit, so they would pay the $1.25.
For 40 units, or however many units they have.
Well, it would be according to the water meter and the number of units, so yes. So like, at the airport doesn't have water meters, so we have to do something special for them. But for an apartment, it would be per apartment, but it would be charged on the water bill, on the utility bill. So it would be however that works out.
So every person who gets a utility bill that registers how much they're paying for water is essentially going to be paying that in addition.
Right,
Yeah.
and if it's a meter for a large apartment complex, they're all going to have to pay the utility fee still, even though it's 1 meter. So that's how that's gonna work.
I remember when we enacted the public safety fee, one apartment owner came and talked to me, and he owned, 20 units. And he said, now I have to pay 20 times whatever that is. And he said, but the hotel, because they only had 1 meter, paid 1.
No, it's not going to be like
It's
that.
not like that.
There is a engineering manual that we will look up hotels.
We have the slide for that.
Okay.
Keep going. You're good.
We will look up hotels and it will tell us how many units a hotel is, and they will pay that fee.
Okay. Well, yeah, I looked this over and I didn't see hotels on there or apartment complexes.
Yeah, so you can
Particularly.
see, going back to that slide, a drive-in bank would pay 24 times what a single-family dwelling unit will pay.
And that's based on
fast food drive-through will pay 45 times.
And that's based on per 1,000 feet. So if a bank had 2,000 feet, then they'd pay 48.
It's not that straightforward.
Okay.
It's an engineering equation, and this is just an example so that
Okay.
you can see what it looks like. But you have to look it up in the charts. There's these, I mean, it's a thick book and it's full of charts, and you look it up and you figure out what it is.
Okay, I'll hold those questions.
So the example could be, it could be more than $1.25.
Not for a single-family residence, but
Okay.
for a commercial or an industrial, it will be.
So that, the example of the $1.25 is accurate.
That's what
The trip
That's
fee.
what the committee came up with for single-family residences.
And how, and does,
But
would,
that $1.25 is set by city council, so.
gotcha, okay.
You get to say what that fee is going to be. But $1.25 kind of gets to the back of the envelope calculation.
Gotcha. So then, long-term, the council would say, like, if it had to go up, or decrease, or increase, and so forth?
Right, the
Okay.
council would set that fee,
Gotcha, okay.
absolutely.
And just for clarification, the airport does pay, just like they pay the safety fee.
Yeah.
It's on the accounts. So like with me and my husband, we pay 3 safety fees because we have a business, we have 2 offices, and then we have our home. So I'm assuming it's gonna be about the same ratio.
It will
So-
be the same unit will be used. So if you have a house, that will be 1 unit. You have a business, that will be 1 unit. If that's what it is for the public safety fee right now, if it's a unit. Well, actually, it won't be tied to the public safety fee at all. It'll be 1 unit for your house, it'll be whatever the manual says for your business, and it'll be whatever the manual says for the third thing you mentioned.
Yeah, we have a hangar.
A hangar. Yeah, see, so we'll have to look into the book and see what it says for airport hangars. I can't tell you we can't tell you what the non-residential would be. We just, as a committee, kind of looked at the residential and said, $1.25 gets us where we need to be.
And I just wanted clarification that the airport does pay, the
Yes.
people on the airport are paying.
Yes, I didn't
And
mean
they-
to
No.
imply that they weren't. They do
No,
pay.
just in case the counselors didn't understand that. It's paid.
And then are RVs and mobile homes same as apartments? Or are they considered like single dwelling?
RVs and mobile homes, like, if you're talking about manufactured homes.
Yes.
Manufactured homes are a dwelling unit,
Okay.
RVs are not.
Are RVs charged or would be charged if this would?
I don't think so, see, these are all questions that you guys are gonna have to iron through.
Okay.
There's a lot of details
Whoever pays for
to
the water,
this.
Whoever pays for that water bill, and then we go to the book and we look up
So the RV park
RV
would be.
park in
Yes,
the book.
I think that's what you're.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're asking
Yeah.
how many would the RV park, well, we look in the book under RV parks.
Yeah.
And the RV park would be charged
Whatever.
whatever.
Okay.
It wouldn't be individual RVs,
Now
They're
say,
generating trips.
yeah,
right?
Jim?
Okay.
if you have a residence and you're renting out your driveway to someone in an RV, which I don't know if there's a city ordinance allowing that, I'm just speaking on the fly here.
That's an ADU.
Yeah, then, I mean, they're hooking into your house water,
Right,
so
yeah.
That needs
we
to be
don't have the
something city
staff to
council-
track them down and charge them $1.25,
That
but,
might-
But that might be something that city council wants to discuss.
yeah, to consider.
And that's what we got into some of these questions in the committee, and I said, no, we can't decide these at the committee level. This is a city council question because it has to do with how the fee structure is going to be put together.
Sure.
And that's going to have to be approved by the city council. You're going to have to approve the commercial and industrial and non-conforming type of fees in addition to what to $1.25 for residential. So.
Jim looks like he wants to add something.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, while we're kind of getting into the weeds on this one, that one of the other things that came up in the meeting is just how long the implementation would take. If the council wants us to go in this direction, we probably have to hire a consultant to kind of work through all these pieces. And then, of course, we'd have to make sure our billing software can do the things that we want it to do. And we work through that. And I think we kind of ballparked about 6 months just to get it going. So one of the pros was that we could do this, the city council could do this through ordinance and resolution, but there is a lot of work on the backside of this as well. And another, for those who have businesses, we picked just a handful of businesses to show that, the school district will be affected. The service station obviously will be affected. They'll pay 14 times every fueling station they have. So, for example, Bill has 18 fueling stations. So it's not just 14 times, it's 14 times 18 that he'll end up paying. And there were some businesses that have a decibel of a single family dwelling unit. The dwelling unit is kind of like the standard. You have a house, you're gonna have a car, and you're gonna make a trip a day to and from work. And that's kind of the standard that the Institute of Transportation Engineers work from. And like Manager Amber alluded to, there's pages and pages and pages of different codes for different businesses, and we'll have to figure that all out.
And if somebody's unhappy with what their fee ultimately ends up being, there is a provision that they can do a traffic study, and they can actually say, no, see, I generate only 20 trips a day, so I want to pay for 20 trips, not 45. So they can do that. So it's fair, and there are mechanisms where people can ask for some additional study.
It'll be interesting as we dig in, because I look at that high school one and I think, how many trips a day at the high school? I mean, if I think of the cars and the buses, it's hundreds.
How
And
many
that's-
square feet is the school? It's
Well, but
based on
that's-
square footage.
It's not based on square footage, though. That's just an example. It's a much more complicated formula than that. And so, but you do, as city council, you will have leeway to say, it's a nonprofit, we want to give the school a break, we don't want it to be, 800 trips a day, we want it to be 5 trips a day. And you can do that, you can set that. But you can't be real arbitrary. You can't just say, okay, the insurance is going to be 2 trips a day and the hair salon is going to be 12 trips a day. You can't do that.
And no
You have
more
to-
Fridays.
You have to follow within guidelines, but there is some leeway for, if you wanted to do something special for a nonprofit or something like that, that would be something you could talk about. But I would at least have them do one.
All right, any other questions, or we can go ahead and go to the next slide then? Those were some of the examples of the transportation utility fee, the trip generators. We kind of talked through a few of these, but these are some numbers that kind of would associate with that. So, so the amount, like the gas station would pay the $17.50 per fueling position per month. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because it's like, well, because I know you look at that station, there are 9 pumps there, but there's 2 sides to every pump, so that's 18. So anyway, that's how that gets figured out. Fast food restaurant pays a different, or, that's kind of the number, 56.25 per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area per month. So those are estimates, again, kind of just preliminary numbers, and so the council can direct, if we want to explore this further, what those numbers really pencil out to. And was that it, Jim? I think, we could talk a little bit about the motions.
I think we kind of skipped over street bonds.
Did we? Okay, whoops, sorry about that. So the street bonds, that's another option that we see in larger cities. I think, but we could do it here. One thing is that we could pick a whole bunch of projects and do them, just get them out of the way, or, essentially finance a bunch of them at one time. Just adds onto your property tax bill, so, but it's not affected as far as the electric vehicles and things like that, because it's not a factor in this case. But those are cons. I mean, the bond market, bad. Right now, nobody's really into that. There's restrictions on their use. There's a lot of work that it would take to get that organized by council, a campaign basically to promote it and all those things. And then it has to be done in such a way that it includes projects kind of throughout town. If you just said, well, we're gonna just take care of stuff over on this end of town, and, people on the other side of town be like, well, why would I want to pay for that? So there's a little complexity when you're doing something where there's a lot of projects in a bundle like that, where you would kind of, I don't know, you could do it and maybe say we're going to maybe even include some funding for some safety improvements, some crossings or some other things like that, but it didn't seem like a very palatable option, so not recommended. All right, so did we get through all of them then? Those were the main ones, and so we made that, the motion that's up there. Yeah.
Did you go into what a lid is? Does everybody understand what a lid is, an LID? No.
Yeah, you missed that part, but essentially a lid is where, so if you have a project, let's say it's the one here, on 2nd Street, because that's a good example, really needs it, everybody knows, nobody thought we'd drive down there. It's, but there's property owners that are gonna benefit by the fact that that has been improved. There's gonna be not just new streets, sidewalks, gutters, and all those things, and so they, through what they call a local improvement district, which is something that the council actually has to approve, right? That's how that process is through council. So for each of these projects, we would seek to have the residents pitch in and pay for that part. And it's curbs, sidewalks, gutters. So about 20% of the total project would be funded by, I think is that number, so.
And people would only be responsible for paying for the curb, sidewalk, and gutter in front of their house. So, the more frontage you have, the bigger your lid.
Yeah, so it gives everybody a chance to participate in for the project, so.
If they cannot pay, then it becomes a lien against that property, and the city would still have to fund. We wouldn't just say, oh, you're not paying that house number 44, so you don't get a sidewalk. Cliff's only gonna build for your neighbor who has paid their bill. It doesn't work like that. The whole project would still be done. The city would cover it, and then we would have a lien.
We would take out a loan, and then the lid would, the money that people paid back under the LID would pay back the loan.
How long do you have to pay that as a homeowner?
Well, it depends on the length of the loan.
Okay.
So when they did 5th Street, Harvey Road, my mother-in-law lived on Harvey. She was outside the city limits. And so she got a nice bill from Lane County. She had 3 options. One was just to pay it
Up front, the whole
up front. 2 was to pay it by loan installments. I think it was over 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, five.
Or 3, they put a lien on the property, and she wouldn't pay it until she died, and then they would take that out.
Right.
And I think there was some system figuring in, there was some interest charged. So it wasn't, in 20 years you die and you pay $5,000 or whatever,
Right.
which is now valued at $2,000. So those are the 3 options she had.
Right.
So I have a question on the motion.
Yes.
At the very last sentence says, non-residential fee to be determined. What does that mean?
So
Business fee.
we did want to say business, right? Because,
It's industrial, commercial, and non-conforming properties. So that would be the airport hangars, that would be industrial properties and commercial properties. The only fee that was determined by the committee was the $1.25. And they didn't have the books to sit down and figure out all the fee, and besides, that's not what the committee was charged with. Like Jim said, we're gonna need to get a consultant to sit down and come up with the fee and present the fee table to the city council for approval.
Is there any way, and it's probably impossible, to where you could have a gas tax only for people who didn't live in Crestwell?
No.
You know, sometimes when you put your debit card in, they say zip code.
Yeah.
So if it was a zip code that wasn't Crestwell, of course, you can have a Crestwell zip code and live a mile out of town,
That's true.
too, so.
I applaud your clever idea.
Well, it sure be, we have so many people who pull in off the freeway,
Yeah.
get gas, pull out, and that's the nice thing of a gas tax, but if you don't have it in place, you don't generate anything.
Well, the city council can always decide, this is a recommendation, these are recommendations from the committee. The city council can always decide that they want to do a gas tax. And
No, I just want to tax the people who don't live in Crestwell, who use our gas station.
I'd
was
like
trying
to
to-
tax LTD,
That's-
who
yeah,
has
that's-
ruined Second Street, in my opinion.
Well, is LTD, they're a business that operates in Crestwell.
Government.
Unfortunately, they don't have a unit of,
You don't have a business address here.
right, they don't have a utility bill that we could knock them with.
We talked about it.
Yeah, we really would. But there's no way to attach the fee to their actual,
Okay.
and we have a hard enough time getting the bus coming through town that if we put an extra fee on it, they might just,
Skip Crestwell.
Yeah, skip us all together. All right, so that's the motion, and then there was just a revision. So Counselor Shuck, that one you might be interested in. It was basically, we wanted to really make sure that we were saying this correctly of how that money can be used. And so it's very specific that it is to pay for the maintenance, improvements, and construction of city streets.
Does that include sidewalks, curbs, and gutters?
No, it doesn't,
That's,
right?
well, we talked about this. And it's to be used for the maintenance and improvements to city streets, and improvements could be curbs, sidewalks, and gutter.
Okay,
but-
could be, that's, is that
Or
where
it
we
could be
landed?
traffic signals, or it could be signage, or it could be wayfinding signs, or something like that. An improvement goes a little bit further than just the pavement on the city street. It could be sidewalks, it could be crosswalks, it could be,
Well, when I think of the word construction, when we put in new city streets, don't we put in sidewalks, curbs, and gutters? Do we put in any streets that don't have that?
we shouldn't,
That would be new construction.
but I know we maintain streets that don't have them.
Without putting them in.
Right.
So, I mean, that was part of the charge, you know, streets and sidewalks.
Right. Sidewalks come with the LID.
that's in the first part of the motion, was the LID would pay for
Right.
sidewalk. Good.
That's right.
So the LID gets the sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and then the street utility fee gets everything else that comes with the street, whether that's a crosswalk for kids to get to school.
And this probably comes with some back,
Biking.
it probably comes somewhat back to our transportation safety plan, because we're gonna we're gonna do these road things as per that plan. And so
Well-
if that plan calls for sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, then we're gonna put that in.
Comes back to our design standards, actually.
Okay,
So our design standards call out what kind of a street it is and what kind of things go along with that kind of a street. So a major collector would have something more than bicycle path would.
okay.
So that is essentially our presentation, and we do have a committee member here, and then of course, the committee that was from the council, and we have Cliff. So now's your chance to hit us with questions, concerns, things like that.
I was just gonna add in here as well, so, as we were talking about that $1.25, and this really focuses in on the residents itself. So I guess, kind of putting kind of like businesses, industrial, kind of like, putting that aside, is that we talked a lot and we anticipated, that you all would be interested in, like, what's the bottom line issue? Like, what is the bottom line? How much is it gonna cost? And what is the benefit gonna be for our Crest Wellington residents? Because as we've talked about already this year, I mean, there have been increases in all sorts of costs, right, that we've talked about. We talked about it with the budget committee. And so we wanted to really look at, we're not wanting to make money, right? We're wanting to fund the charge, right? Hear our residents in that they want improvements, and that we need to make improvements in our roads. And so how do we do that in the most cost-saving and time-sensitive manner?
And I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
There's still a lot of work to be done, at the staff and council level, should you choose to move forward with the recommendations of the committee. So don't feel like this is it and you've got everything you need to know and we're deciding tonight what the street utility fee is going to be. There's still very much a lot of work that needs to be done.
So I had two questions. One, it was mentioned if somebody needed to do a traffic study, who pays for that?
They would pay for it, so.
The business?
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
had a business, if you had the mill and they said, heck, no, we're not paying this, then you do a traffic study and you say, okay, then how many trucks do you have and how many axles go across our roads? And then they pay for the study.
Okay. And then the second question that I had was how would that work if, for a street that's city and county?
What do you mean? That's
Like
being
for-
built by city and county together?
Or like part of it's maybe a city road and then the rest of it's county?
We are
Does it
not
just stop at-
authorized to do construction on county.
So it would just stop at the city line?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's their jurisdiction.
Sure, I get that.
Just to clarify, so the process, if a business wanted to contest that fee, the process would be, they would have to show you their study.
Yeah, they'd have to get one of those boxes with one of those little things that go across, and they'd have to count how many in and outs were there, and they'd show us, look, we had 47 cars come in.
We gave all
Okay.
our people the day off. We had no cars.
Yeah,
Just
well,
kidding.
that's why it has to be a study. And not a one-time.
So I know that Coburg instituted a TUF a number of years ago. So just out of curiosity, I did a little looking up and found their action issue item from their council meeting July 27, 2021, about a year ago for them. They needed to raise between $132,000 and $140,000 per year. So they talked about their outreach to the public, which would be a big part of what we would be doing as well. And so, it's a pretty good write-up, but it was interesting. They needed to raise $130,000 in the first year, that they decided. So, their single-family detached ADU, can you guess what it is in Coburg?
$5.
$7. Single-family apartment, $483 per unit. Condominium, $420. Mobile home park / trailer parks, $364 per site. Assisted living, $2 per bed. Business, $7 plus associated trip charge. Fraternal organizations, minus with an annual revenue below $25,000, $10 monthly fee. Fraternal organizations annual revenue above $25,000, $10 plus associated trip charge. So they did what you're talking about. They tried to get specific to their community. So this was a good document to read because it talks a lot about what they did to reach out to the public, what they did to reach out to businesses, and the steps to bring it to completion. And then they voted on it and they passed it. But $7 per single family dwelling. So, of course, different community, much smaller population base, about half of what we need to raise per year.
Different configuration of commercial and industrial to residential.
Now, they point out in here that current transportation project list addressing current street condition is 3.5 million. Approximately 2.65 million of this cost should be absorbed by the non-resident customers.
There you go.
So they expected the big part. This comes out to 1/3, or approximately $4,000 a month, covered by residents and 2/3 by businesses. So, anyway, just made for interesting reading.
They have higher fees on several things than we do. Their sewer.
Mayor Stram, it sounds like they have like a modified flat fee where every unit's gonna pay kind of similar. And I just want to note in the slide, if we did like the public safety fee where we just said per dwelling unit, ours would be like $885 a month. But using the Institute of Transportation Engineers, that would shift a lot more of it on to businesses like the service station, the auto repair shop. the
We're in here in
schools.
Crestwell.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how that's how you're able to get that single-family dwelling down to such a low number.
When you do fees like this, there is a nexus that you have to keep in mind. And you can do the fees by doing the method that Jim just said, but you got to think about what's going to happen if they're ever challenged legally. And we looked at this when we were putting one in Toledo, and we went with the engineering guide because that was the most professional way to come up with fair fees, and it's an industry standard. So I wouldn't recommend going with the flat fee because I think it could be legally challenged.
You mean like Cobra did?
Yeah.
Okay.
$8 a month?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to get
I
us where
don't
we
think
need to be.
I don't think our citizens would embrace that.
How
So
much do
Kevin?
we, in Crestwell, want to generate per year?
255,000.
155,000.
So Kevin,
Yes.
next steps, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, so I would recommend if the council is willing to go ahead and direct staff to go ahead and begin to investigate this option. If you are so inclined, it would require consensus, I believe, from the group here to do that.
Yeah, I believe
And
so.
it's just an exploratory stage where we get information and then it would come back to the council at a future work session.
I'm sorry, I was not paying attention.
No, it's okay. So next step is kind of.
Direct staff?
That's, he's asking for my recommendation, and that's kind of what I've thrown out there, is that would be our next step. Is that something that we're ready to?
To direct staff to do what?
Yeah.
I would-
To do
I
what?
would- I would suggest that we would be saying we accept the recommendation of the committee and direct staff to work on a two-part process, which would include a local improvement district mechanism and a transportation utility fee. That those are the two parts of this recommendation, that we would direct staff to begin work on kind of that two-pronged approach to fulfilling the committee's charge, which was a long-term sustainable source of funding for, as it says, roads and whatever that phraseology was, roads and maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So that would be how I would phrase that.
Yes. So,
So are you directing staff, just question, are you directing staff to have the consultant start work?
Well, I guess my thought would be
For the
that,
tough fee?
that with this in mind, staff's gonna go back and have conversations on what are our next steps. Local improvement district and tough, and then staff's gonna come back at a subsequent work session and say, okay, here's what we think the next steps are. It involves these kinds of dollars. It has to become part of the budget, amended budget. It involves whatever, and then the staff's gonna come back with a recommendation of here's the next steps to making this happen.
Yeah, we have an ordinance on the LID that we could bring back to a city council work session, and the city council could look at it and then see if that's the direction that they want to go. And then we can also start working again on the transportation utility fee, and we can see what it would cost and bring that back to city council for the consultant to actually come up with the fee for the various categories.
Does that make sense? We're basically asking Michelle and her staff to start working on this recommendation because we as a council are saying, yes, we accept this recommendation, we're pleased with it, start working on it, and then bring us back reports at subsequent work sessions on next steps. I think recognizing what Jim said, that this is a process that may take us, I know from conversation with the mayor of Cobury, it took them 2 years.
Well, I don't know if it'll take us 2 years, but it might take us a year.
Yeah.
We could probably do the LID pretty quickly and get that underway and start, that's probably the simplest part of this, but the transportation utility fee will take some time and a good consultant.
So we're not at the starting point. We started when we gave a charge and formed a committee. We're at the point of saying, I mean, we could say to the committee, we don't like your work, go back and do it all over again, or make some changes. Or we could say, we're pleased with the work that's been done, we accept this recommendation, and we're now directing staff to begin doing their work on it. So I kind of see two directions that we could say, we don't like this recommendation, we need more work, we need changes made, or we like the recommendation, direct staff. What do y'all think, council? So let's just look around. Council, do you like the recommendation? And would you like to direct staff to begin working on it? We're going to look around for head nods. If you're not sure, we'll just keep going.
I'm not sure at this point.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have enough council saying we like the recommendation. Let's proceed to move forward with it. And Michelle, I'm not going to give you any time framework. I'm not going to say next month we want to. I would say as you have reports to give us, please give those to us.
Okay.
Because we know we're just adding more to your plate, more to the staff's plate.
That's what I was afraid of when Kevin said direct staff. I was like, ah.
We're directing staff, but we
Give
don't
them
have
a
a time,
time.
we don't have a time
Give them a
framework.
time frame.
and I should clarify, we actually direct Michelle directs staff, so.
Right. Yes.
I have to do what, when?
So what I want to say is to Don, to all the council members that are on this committee, the staff that worked so hard on it, Jim, the presentation, and to, if we get a chance, please thank the other community members, Chelsea Pisani, Bill Spencer, and Kelly Coughlin, who have put in a lot of work on this. And I appreciate it a great deal. This is, not even the first step, because when you worked on gas tax last year, your committee put in a ton of work too. So Sometimes the good things in life take a long time, a lot of work, don't they? And the sensitivity to a changing environment. Where we were a year ago, where we are now, different place. So thank you for everybody who's put in a lot of work. And we will continue to move forward with this towards our eventual goal of having a sustainable funding source for roads in Crestwell.
A question for you, Mayor. Does that then conclude the work for the
That
committee?
fulfills your charge.
All right.
Thank you. Don, thank you very, very much.
I didn't know if we were going to reactivate later or not.
That concludes your charge. You're done.
Right on.
Okay, so that brings us to Parks and Tree Advisory Board. Do we have a report from Parks and Tree?
Yes, we continued working on our tree care. We are continuing work on the map, walking map. And I went blank on a name, came in and brought us a map. and- Curtis, thank you very much. But anyway, he came in and brought us a map, and we offered some suggestions for change to make it clearer and easier to use. And he will be bringing us back hopefully, the finished map that we can, do we present that to you before we go any further?
Yes.
That's what I thought, we present it to the city council before anything further is done with it. With any luck, by the next work session, something we'll have come
That'd be
together.
wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Airport Commission.
No report tonight?
Okay, LCOG. So LCOG had a meeting last week and a long agenda because they did out their budget and their executive director's annual evaluation. So you can imagine it took a while. But this is just a quick overview. LCOG needs to hire a lot of people, particularly in the area of senior and disabled services. They're down 33 some odd staff. And they talked a lot about why. And they said, well, they lost a lot of people during the pandemic, and now they're having a hard time hiring people back. And most of the people they're hiring are coming from the state children's services division or something, because they have some training in providing services, and they're looking to bump up their pay scale. So, but they're just really short on case workers, case managers, and that's senior and disabled services. So the budget passed unanimously. Executive director had her annual evaluation. I don't know how many of you know Brenda Wilson. She's now been with LCOG 10 years. And there was a number of comments that came out that she's a catch. She does a great job, and we should be happy we have her because she's a prime candidate to be recruited away. So she normally has a 2-year contract, so they signed her on for a 3-year. But you can still get hired away really quick. So that's just kind of an overview. A lot of stuff, but LCOG's not meeting again until September, so we won't have another report for a while. Lane Act.
All right.
Shelley.
Well, I'm going to start with the bad news first, which is there's no Lane Act meeting next month, so I will not have a report for next month. We also had a short meeting this last week, so my report is also shorter. That's the bad news. I know. Okay, so what we talked about quite a bit this month, so we met on June 8th. And I don't know if you all have heard, but the Worlds are coming up. And there's quite a bit of logistics that go along with that. So we actually spent quite a bit of time talking about just even the process of getting folks, athletes from the airport to their hotels and getting them kind of around and all of the different logistic pieces that go along with that. We also went over generally the world schedule and what kind of traffic impacts we should expect to have happen in Eugene. So I think I think it's like world22.com. You can look up the worlds and they should be able to give you a much more specific schedule. And so as you are planning your travel, whether that be around Lane County or within Eugene or Springfield, you're going to certainly notice a lot of traffic impacts that way as well. So I encourage you to check that out. And like I said, and then also just if you have family that's coming in to visit around that point in time, or anyone coming to visit, you may want to just give them a good acknowledgement of you're probably not gonna be able to find a hotel room,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Or Airbnb or anything like that, because we're expecting, I think the last thing I heard is about, in addition to the athletes, about 20,000 visitors daily, especially at the height of the world. So, so there is gonna be quite a bit of stuff happening. So, I highly encourage you to check that out. So we talked a lot about that. The other piece that we really talked about, had a good presentation on, is the federal lands access program. And so as I was listening to the presentation, I was also kind of thinking a little bit about our strategic plan and how we want to kind of be a good gateway to wine country and all that sort of stuff. And so so I will happily, if you all would like me to, I can share the information maybe to city staff around kind of federal lands. And again, city is not federal lands, so I don't know exactly what that would do, but I'm happy to share information as there's always opportunities, or there could be opportunities for funding there. But I just didn't want to share it without us talking about it as a group first. Okay, I'm getting the good general vibe of like, yes, go ahead and share that information.
About federal land access,
Yes,
I don't really care to hear it.
okay,
I just need to go right on. We have a lot of stuff to
Great.
cover.
great. Well, I will, so what I'll do with that is I'll go ahead and I'll share some information with Michelle about that. And so maybe there's some good opportunities to, I don't know, be strategic and leverage or to be like, I don't know, there's nothing we can do. Right, so we'll explore it. All right, and that is the Lane Act update for today. So, and again, next month there will be an update.
Okay. So we have no presentations. We move to item 4. Before we do the strategic plan, I think we need to take a 5-6 minute break. Go for a little walk, stretch your legs, open your soda pop can, whatever.
You know me too well.
Yeah. I was getting my calculator out thinking 20-some million dollars minus this equals that divided by, That was when I said, Jim, just give us an overview.
And we've been on this work on our
So Kelly, I saw that email you got from the paper. And
Yeah.
I thought you made a good response to say, I have opinion,
Yeah.
but,
Well,
so others can weigh in, and press was a welcoming place. And I thought, my thought was,
I'm glad you were here.
No, I'm
sorry.
even our hotel was city, wanting to access services in Eugene, and then something still.
I've done.
And if they do, and they get a negative response, what can we do about that? Or if they get a positive response?
I know how that one.
I thought, one of the things I thought when we get trained is
I also know
we don't supersede federal law, state law,
they have
county law,
discussed internally
any law.
the challenges
Right.
that will come.
I'm sure it does.
On all these different
Right.
Water and sewer and roads and wastewater.
We're still on YouTube.
We are.
Yeah. Nonpartisan place.
Right, yeah, I was like, I mean, I certainly have thoughts, but also, they're not council thoughts, and so, my first question was like,
I wouldn't,
but like, yeah,
I never got, she might send it all the time.
yeah, like I said, what I
Wise
emailed
and
to.
seasoned reserve.
Thanks, and then I was also like, I'm gonna copy people on this response, so that no one is like, wait, what'd she say, and why did she say that, and.
We've had counselors in here.
It's so
But if
interesting
you
how much.
want-
Yeah, I thought, I'm just gonna,
Without.
I appreciate it.
yep.
It's just. Well, and then.
So I can get my fake handouts all by myself.
They're down staffing.
No, I'm kidding.
So places, and they
Make a toaster here.
and then they can't fill positions.
Well, we've got a position open for personal health.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the glasses.
Right away.
It's like a hypercolor glass. Oh. And so it changes color, so like you can tell that water has warmed up.
Oh, just
It's orange instead of red.
That's neat.
But it's a fantastic size of glass,
Uh-huh.
and it has a straw, which
Yeah.
actually helps me drink more water, so.
Right.
Which is probably a good thing,
That always is.
especially on a nice warm day.
Oh, it was hot this weekend.
Like I said, we went camping out on the Mackenzie,
Oh, yeah.
and we were right on the river.
Oh, I bet it was nice.
Oh my gosh, it was gorgeous. We were, so if you're looking for a good campground, Paradise in Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got flush toilets, which is important to me when I go camping.
Yeah.
And they've got like running water. They don't have showers, but
Yeah.
like I said, it was gorgeous. We
Are
were,
you tent camp or trailer camp?
we were tent campers.
Ah,
Yeah.
I used to be till last year. I was like over 20 years of camp and this body just can't,
But they have a lot of pull-through areas, so if you have.
yeah, we have a pop-up or the canopy, on a full hard shell.
Yeah, but it's like I said, lots of pull-through, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
And you're about a 15-minute drive from the, like,
Give another
pool
minute.
trail.
So just-
Yeah, so we went up and hiked around.
Do you, can you reserve it or do you just, whatever's available?
So they have a number of first come, first serve.
Okay.
And then they have a number of reservations.
And what's the name?
We are ready.
Paradise in Oregon. Yeah, so you go to recreation.gov.
Okay, yes.
You guys
I'm
did great
familiar.
work.
Yep.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
And I have
much.
to admit, when I looked at the
because there's lots of
presentation,
Paradise.
I thought,
So make sure to put in Paradise in Oregon. They
Oh,
don't have
there's
anything.
that guy over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have anything
Can't take
left
credit
over
for that
the
one.
weekends for the rest of the summer.
Okay.
But they do have lots of first come, first serve, so.
We drove through one over there. I'll have to look that up to
Yeah.
see.
Okay, ready? Here we
Yeah,
go.
and then we drove up to Clear Lake. as well.
Norma will be with us as soon as she gets out. We're gonna get started. Okay, we're reconvening. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
And is Sandra with us online?
She's not.
Okay,
It's just, you just get me today.
all of you we get. Thank you.
But she was in our last team meeting, and she was present for our whole plan development session with the project team. So this is the only point where she hasn't been with us, so. Anyway, she said to say hello. She had to be on site with another client in Texas, that's why she's not joining us. So Mayor, any words from you first before we start on this item?
I'm excited about this, just because I believe in the importance of strategic planning. So, let's do it.
Okay. Well, before we go through, we're going to walk through the plan component by component, but before we do that, I just wanted to set the context by saying that what you're going to see here is a combination of your work that we did in your retreat with words that you all came up with in your brainstorming, as well as work that staff then took. We had a retreat with them out at the airport that Shelley hosted us out there. They took your direction and they came up with objectives and performance measures. And they really took your so that logic model statements around the strategic priorities and put the goal statements together. So what you see here is some of your actual work plus very strong direction to staff, and then staff working with Sandra and I as facilitators to build the rest of the plan out. So what you don't see in the document is your mission statement, because we're not doing anything to that. It's up there on the wall, it's not being repainted. You all decided in your retreat as a city council that you really liked your mission statement and that it really was very accurately describing the purpose of the city. So that's why the mission statement isn't in here when we do the final draft of your plan, which will come to you for adoption. It's July 11th, right? we will have the mission statement in there. But I just didn't have it in this, because this is for your review of things that you can revise. That you're not revising your mission statement. All right, with that as a backdrop, are you ready to start walking through? Okay. So the draft vision statement, we used the material that you all generated, and Sandra and I wrote a couple different, 2 or 3 different examples for the staff to look at and try to take and fine tune. And this is what we're bringing back to you. Cresswell is a safe, friendly, and inclusive community that is an attractive hometown for families, a vibrant place for businesses and entrepreneurs, and a destination with activities and events of interest for visitors and tourists. So how does that hit you? Does it describe the future you envision for your community? That's really what the question is for your vision statement. Does it concretely and accurately describe how you want your community to be at some point in the future?
Yes.
Any words you would change, or is there any thought or idea that's glaringly missing from this? We really tried to incorporate all of your key points and write it in as short of a statement as we could get away with.
Well, at first, I had a grammatical question, but I think it's been resolved.
Okay.
And that is, Cresswell is a safe, friendly, and inclusive community that is an attractive hometown, a vibrant place, and a destination, what? I was looking for another word, but then I thought, no, what it's saying is it is a place that is an attractive hometown, a vibrant place, and it is a destination.
Correct. That is how we mean it.
Okay.
And you all actually talked, we really wanted to have the word destination in there because you did talk about that as a key concept as a city council of wanting Cresswell to become a destination that people come to, whether it's for the restaurant scene here or whether it's for events that are crafted with the different things that you have available in your region. Or whether it's associated with the airport. You have a number of different component parts that could be draws that would make Cresswell a destination.
Yeah. So with that, I'm good with it. I saw assent from the council, so I think we can move on.
Great. So the next are the draft guiding principles, and you all came up with those bolded words there. The fiscal stability, the investing in staff, the partnerships, the serving everyone, the approachable, and the innovative. We took your descriptions from those, when we asked you to tell us more about what you mean when you say fiscal stability. Tell us more about what you mean when you're saying one of our guiding principles is serving everyone. And then Sandra and I crafted those statements, and we got some good feedback from staff in their retreat to fine tune them. So the first one, fiscal stability, we constantly ensure the best use of public funds and resources and are accountable to our community so that future generations will have as many opportunities available to them as we do today. And the one thing I thought of that could improve that maybe just a little bit, and I just thought of it while I was over the break while I was reading through this, we'll have, as we could say, as many opportunities or more, if you really wanted to make that push future focus.
Or at least as many. Yeah.
I like the wording that's here.
Okay. What do others think?
I like
The way it's worded? All right, so do we have thumbs up on fiscal stability as guiding principle the way that it's written? Okay. Investing in staff. We value our employees and continually seek ways to invest in their so we took out the word enhance. To invest in their professional growth and well-being to meet the growing needs of the community.
Thumbs up for me, I like that.
Yeah.
Do we need to meet the growing needs of the community? Because this is about staff.
But the staff are the ones who do all the work outside of this chamber to meet the growing needs.
Yeah,
Whether it's we need to hire new people to run the park, or we need some more training for somebody running wastewater, or we need to hire a new person down there to do planning. The whole purpose of them is to meet our community's needs. That's growing.
we felt that we needed to make the connection between the purpose. It's a strong statement about how you value your people, but we felt like it was important to make the connection between how you want to treat your employees and the whole purpose for having a city workforce is to meet the community's needs and demands.
And our professional growth should be towards the community's needs, not necessarily towards, gee, I think it might be fun to learn to become a forester, so I'm gonna take some forestry classes, or something like that. Become an urban forester. I need
Except, I
to
know that
be
we-
focused on what will benefit the community.
I know in the past, we have had staff members who took, I think, some tree care training for our staff because that was part of their job here, was to care for trees.
But that wouldn't be a good one for me.
Right.
I wanted to say, I also really like to meet the growing needs of the community. I think growing is a really versatile term because not only does it talk about the community actually growing, but I also think that it reflects on what may be a salient issue in our community today may be something different tomorrow.
Right.
And so, I really like that phrase.
I like it because we're investing in our employees' personal growth so that it's working towards the growth of the community, not just for their own personal stuff, that they're part of the community. Yeah, I think it's important.
Thumbs up?
We got a thumbs up for the second one, investing in stuff, okay. Partnerships. We actively engage with our community and region in ways that benefit and improve the lives of Crestwell residents, businesses, and workers.
So I questioned the word workers. Not that I'm against it, I just wondered, we're talking about the residents, the businesses, and we have a lot of and-those. I mean,
So-
we have schools, we have churches, we have civic organizations, and of course, we have people who have jobs here.
So we called out workers with purpose because we wanted to differentiate workers from businesses. So if you read businesses, that could be just a business owner. And so we felt it was important to call workers out. One thing we didn't call out was community organizations, and that might be one that we would want to consider adding to this. But the word community would really encompass those other community organizations that you would partner with so that you can benefit the residents who live here, so that you can benefit the workers who work here, so that you can benefit the businesses who provide jobs here. So that's kind of how we thought about that.
Thumbs up?
I'm sorry, I'm not all that impressed with it.
What would you suggest maybe to improve it?
I don't know, maybe I'm adding too much to it. Improve the lives of Creswell and its residents, businesses, workers, and visitors. I don't know.
Maybe, so one way we could do it that wouldn't call out any individual group.
Yeah, that was my concern is,
Right.
you're including some, which whenever you include some, exclude others.
So we could say we actively engage with our community and region in ways that benefit and improve all in Crestwell.
I like that better, to be honest.
And then it's really all-encompassing.
All who live in Crestwell, you could say all who live, work, or participate in the life of Crestwell or something like that. There's a lot of ways you could word it. I don't have a problem with this wording as it is.
Okay.
But others, other input about what Norma's saying over there?
Mayor, could you repeat what you said, how you edited that? Because I thought that
In
was
ways that
good.
benefit and improve,
All who live, work,
and participate in the life of Crestwell.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it too.
And I don't necessarily like it better than what you have here, but thinking about what Norma said,
No, I agree.
do others, you
I
guys,
like what you said.
Participate in life in Crestwell?
in the life of Crestwell. And I'm speaking there of Crestwell as having a life,
Right.
which means 4th of July, which means schools. You know, the life of Crestwell is everything that happens here.
National Night
Right.
Out.
National Night Out, everything that happens in Crestwell.
Public Works Day.
So this improves the lives of people who live here,
Yeah.
people who work here, people who participate in the life of Crestwell.
And that could include visitors.
So now you're not leaving anybody out.
Right, it is much more all-encompassing.
Do you have it written out as a statement that you could
Yeah,
read to
so
us?
I'll read it back. We actively engage with our community and region in ways that benefit and improve all who live, work, and participate in the life of Crestwell.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's definitely an improvement.
Okay. Thank you, Norma.
Any opposition to that guiding principle as amended?
I like it.
I like it, and one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about is if I am a business owner, or like if I'm looking for myself, where do I fit within these guiding principles? I worry that if we shorten it, then we don't have that specificity to be like, I was thought of, right? Like I was included in this. And so, but I also want to balance that with when you're intentional, like when you're talking about like including someone, then do you unintentionally exclude someone? And so that's kind of where I'm at, just kind of sitting in my head with that as well. Because I do want to, if I remember right from our strategic plan, is that we were talking a lot about businesses and being good gateways, right? Like good partners. So, and kind of growth. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Well, and we do have a whole section on economic development that focuses on business, and I think in the guiding principles, it makes more sense to be all-inclusive. If you start naming individual things, you're going to ultimately leave somebody out.
That was my reason.
And so if it's more all-encompassing in the guiding principles, I think that's a better approach, because we've got a whole section of the plan that's focused on business.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, I like that we don't have to have, no matter what list we put there, no matter how long it was, we're going to leave something important out.
Probably. So I think that the language that the mayor offered does make it encompassing of everything. Okay, are we good with that? Are we okay with it?
Yes.
Okay. Serving everyone. We aspire to be a fully accessible city, providing accommodation for people of all needs and abilities, listening to a diversity of voices, and seeking full participation in community life.
I like it. It's well said.
Any thoughts on this one?
Well, now, going back to the one we just recreated, they both end with the idea of participation.
I don't know that that's,
This one is seeking participation though, and that is about accessibility, where the other one is building partnerships for.
Those who participate in the life here.
yeah,
So it's a different use of the word.
it is.
I think it is okay.
If we added other ones that said that would be too many of the same word. Unless you could think of another word that means participation.
I don't have a
No.
good
I like the
synonym for
phrase
it.
seeking full participation in community life. The voices,
that too.
I like seeking.
I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Because that includes lots of people who feel at times left out for various reasons. And then we're trying to encourage them
Exactly.
to, we're aspiring to listen and encourage people to find a place to be involved.
And I don't think that there's a problem having participate in your guiding principles, because that really is something that I think Crestwell is about, is participation. We really try to get people to participate, and we try to keep the doors open to people who want to participate. I think it's okay to have in both places.
I do too. And I can't think of a good synonym for participation. I don't know what we could replace it with without changing the meaning of this.
Right. But I think it also fits in the one above it as well.
I do too, and I think that the usage is different, and I think in the guiding principles, it's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as I read kind of the context, like the whole context of serving everyone, what I'm hearing is really about inclusivity and being able to help people bring their full self, right, to that community life, and that be able to participate fully, as opposed to saying, I can only participate this much, or this segment, or, you know, like, if it's a fully accessible city, then I can participate with my full self.
So another word that I can think of that could fit is engagement, seeking full engagement in community life. But I like partnership better still, or participation, I'm sorry, better than engage. So I think I would stick with that if I were, yeah.
You guys okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
participate sounds small town. And that's, to me, you participate in a small town. You engage with a lot of energy, but you participate in a small town. But you could use engage in the one on partnerships. That one could be all who live, work, and engage in the life of Crestwell.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one.
Do you want to change the one up above from participate to engage?
Yeah, that's true.
All who live, work, and engage in the life of Crestwell. How about that?
I like it.
All right.
There you go, good job.
100 points.
All right. So we didn't make any changes to serving everyone. Now we're on approachable. We are an open and responsive city government, helpful and happy to serve.
Yeah, I like that one. That resonates well with me. What do y'all think?
I like it.
Alonzo?
We better be happy
I
to
like
serve. If people are really expect
Some
it.
days we're happier than others.
Well, they should not know the difference.
Any thoughts on that one, or are we generally okay with?
We're good with that.
We're happy with that one.
Happy with that one? Okay. The next one is innovative. We are flexible and adaptive to the changing needs of our community, applying new approaches and innovative practices to solve problems and promote positive change.
I like it,
I like it.
yeah.
Well, I like.
Alonzo,
That's fine.
you gave me a look, I thought, he's thinking something.
No, that's good.
Everybody?
One thing we tried to do with that one was, innovative has become kind of a buzzword. And so we really wanted to we drew from your language when we wrote the statement to really you guys tried to describe, well, what does innovative mean in Crestwell? And so we really tried to capture that there. So I hope we did a good job of that. All right, are you ready to start going through the strategic priorities and the draft goal statements and objectives?
Well, actually, I want to throw this in there.
Yeah,
I don't really like the order.
that's okay. We can change that order.
So I'm gonna suggest a different order.
Huh?
And this is not locked in particularly, but I think you'll see what I'm getting at. I would suggest number one, and these are not numbered, I don't suggest numbering them.
Right.
and that one's more important than the other.
Right.
But just, as you read this document over, I would like to see number one being serving everyone. That the first principle we have is our city aspires to be fully accessible, providing accommodation for people of all needs and abilities, listening to a diversity of voices and seeking full person. So we're here to be accessible, accommodate people, listen, and seek full participation. Number two, I would put would be innovative. We're flexible and adaptive to the changing needs of our community. What's the priority? The needs of our community. And we are here to respond to the needs of our community. How? Then it defines. Number three, fiscal stability. That's important. We're here to make sure that your money is spent well. Number four, partnerships. We're here to engage with all of you to do what? To improve the lives. Again, this is the people focus. We're here to serve the people. Number five, we invest in staff. Because we invest in staff, as I think Norma pointed out, so that they can meet the growing needs of the community. Number six, we're approachable. That's kind of the bottom line one. We are happy to be of service. So I changed the order because I said I want to communicate to people that we're here to serve our community. And then it defines how we do it, innovative. It defines how we care for your money. That's important, but I don't really want that to be first. The first thing you read is, we're here to make sure we take care of your money. Oh yeah, everybody says that. I want people to read, we're here to serve everyone.
Yes.
How do we do it? Innovative. Your money's important. How do we do it? By engaging with people. How do we do it? By valuing our staff. I'd like to get the staff up there higher, but, and then bottom line, we're approachable and we're happy. So I just read it through and thought, I would order it differently.
I like the order. We didn't do it in any particular order. We just threw them in there. So this is, I like your thinking.
So council, what do you think? And then I'm not locked into this being the right order. Other thoughts? How would you order these?
I like your idea of focusing on the people first and how we're going to do that. We could get down into really thinking more. That's going to take more than we want to do just doing it. Perusal of everything. I don't know whether we want to decide today what order it's going to be in. But the idea, that your concept of how to order them is a good one.
Well, I think the idea tonight is that this goes back to you for a final draft that we see in 2 weeks to
Yep,
adopt.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So if we want to make some changes, tonight's the night.
Okay.
So, Alonzo, do you have thoughts on
I
the order?
would definitely rearrange that order.
Do you have a different way you'd like to arrange them?
No, just like you said.
I concur. I like the way that you've arranged them, or rearranged them.
Okay.
I like the idea that the order is something that we, and I'm glad you brought it up, to pay attention to, because it's just another way of saying, you know, that it's not just the words. There's a little bit more to how we thought this out. So that real props on that one, Mayor. I think that's a really great idea. I like the order too. Yep.
I think serving everyone should be first. I don't really have an opinion on the order of the remaining items,
Okay.
but that to lead off with that is very wise.
Serving everyone, approachable, supporting the staff, partnership, physical stability and innovation should be one for the other so that they're kind of next to each other, because they are similar. Physical stability and innovation pretty much go hand in hand. Excuse me, not physical.
Yeah, so the order that the mayor has proposed, just to reiterate that I wrote down, make sure I got this right. Serving everyone is first, innovative is second, fiscal stability is
Okay.
third, partnerships are fourth, investing in staff is fifth, and approachable is sixth. Not that we're not going to number
Right,
them,
no,
but that's
right.
just the order in which we're going to have them flow.
That's how people will read them. They don't have to be numbered, no.
That's right. Okay,
Misty?
I agree. I like the flow of it.
Okay. Michelle?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I like having them in a different order, and I think the order that you are suggesting is pretty good. I don't see the need to change it.
I would say that staff had a lot of input into these. The team that we worked with in their retreat did a nice job of making refinements to these statements. So I think they were thinking also, looking at them through the eyes of their employees. And so I think that was really helpful.
Okay, are we good with the order that I suggested that was read? Okay, and I think you did a wonderful job, you and Sonia and staff, of wordsmithing these.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
We had a lot of good raw material to work with, so. All right, so we're going to move into the strategic priorities. There are 5 of them. Again, we did not put this in any particular order. We just put them in here. And if you want to alphabetize them or you want them in a particular order, we can do that. So just so you know, just like the guiding principles, these aren't in any certain order. So affordable housing, the goal statement we came up with was to support affordable housing options so that Crestwell residents with limited resources can remain in the community. There should be an and here. And families can move into the city and have access to available housing. That was our goal statement for.
And there should be a move, you said move into the city?
Can move to the city. So what I added was, there should be an and after community. So it should read, support affordable housing options so that Crestwell residents with limited resources can remain in the community and families can move to the city and have access to available housing.
So then do you want to go through all the objectives, or we've all read them? And is there anything we would add or dispute with? I don't know how you want to cover that.
Yeah, that's, first of all, just kind of your sense of thumbs up on the goal statement, and then the objectives are what staff came up with. And if there's anything you have a question about or you would want to add to, and the same thing with the performance indicators. We worked pretty hard on those to make sure that these were things that staff could actually measure, right? Instead of putting a bunch of performance measures in there that don't really fit with what's in the plan and that are going to be impossible for staff to measure.
The only one I thought of adding,
Yep.
and I don't know whether would be, we talked a lot about senior adult living options. That there are not any available in Crestwell right now. But maybe that fits under establish appropriate relationships with developers. 'Cause I mean, we're not going to build them.
And also ADUs, which are generally used for elderly parents.
Adding an additional dwelling unit on a piece of property
Yeah.
in Crestwell.
As a Realtor, I don't want to use the word issue, but I'm very sensitive that it says families. I took an oath for my license that a single person buying a house gets the exact same service from me
Good point.
as a family of 4.
What if we
Anyone
just
moving
people?
into the community, yeah, I just am very sensitive to
Yep.
that because I can't say that in my
Yep.
work, and
It's a very good point. We should change families to people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2 cents there.
So what's the thought with what the mayor brought up about housing for elderly community members and seniors and elderly community members?
To me, that's kind of a very targeted sort of thing, but again, I'm not sure what the city does to address that, and maybe that's already included here.
I think it's included in residents with limited resources, because when folks retire and go to a, what do you call it, a set income,
Fixed income?
Fixed income, thank you.
But, you know, a lot of
A
the,
lot of them have to move out of their four-bedroom house, and there's nowhere for them to go in Cresswell for affordable senior living. We've talked about that a lot
There are
in the
different
planning commission in the
strategies.
past.
Yeah, there are different
Yeah.
strategies too, like the number of ADUs.
Yeah.
Or the number of manufactured homes, or those sorts of things like, those are the strategies.
Allowing a second dwelling if it's a, you know, if it's a lot over 10,000 square feet and things like that.
Right now, is there a minimum size a home?
Yeah.
It has to be built there?
Minimum size of home?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But there's minimum how big you can go based on lot size.
Well, yeah.
Well, and the 9% federal tax credit program is something you could tap to allow you to build housing for seniors and elderly members of your
Yeah, we
community.
need to learn more about
And-
that.
And that, right, that's something that could definitely fund that, but Cresswell needs to understand more about how you could access it and tap it.
I'd love to put a line in here that somehow addresses senior adult living so that at least it's stated.
So it's inclusive.
How about explore, because we've used explore in a couple other sentences, explore options for seniors. Affordable,
As number 8?
affordable senior living or
That's
some-
number 8.
Yeah,
I'm just giving an idea.
yeah.
Explore
Affordable housing
affordable housing
options
options for
for
seniors.
seniors and elderly community members.
Yeah.
Should be,
Okay.
it should be included in some way in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm
number
not
8.
sure how to say it, but
And some of those other things that are listed there might lead to helping with that, but,
Yeah.
but I agree with you that it seems like a glaring omission to not have it called out as an objective.
For seniors and
Elderly community members.
I think that affordable and senior thing sometimes in my mind go hand in hand, and so I'm thinking
Yeah.
affordable, but I'm thinking of them in that statement. So I do like the fact that, you know, call it out specifically because,
I do too.
Well, whenever I think of seniors, I also think of our disabled citizens who might need a home that's different than the rest of us. They might need a home they can get a wheelchair into that's set up for that. And it might be the same thing a senior would need. You know, if we're going to build encourage the building of some sort of facilities that seniors would use, disabled would be able to use the same thing.
So
And they're
I-
also an important thing to consider. They're not listed anywhere else on this.
But that, you're getting into really specific things that staff
Right.
has no control over.
Right.
I can't tell a developer to build for
Right, and that's why I'd love to have it in here just so it's
Yeah.
there, but I'm not sure what the
Yeah,
staff does.
yeah.
Well, but these
Can
are
a-
things that you're going to be measuring our progress
Right.
against.
Yeah.
And you're making it impossible for
Right.
us.
Well, that's what you need to tell us.
can explore the idea
You
of
can
like a
explore it.
55 and older manufactured home park. Okay, like, you know, out on
can.
North Terry and Eugene. You could explore
I
that. Is there a developer that would want to, as you're working with developers, is there a developer that would want to put a 55 and older, you know, manufactured home park
Yeah.
here? Explore.
We have that,
You don't have the control, but yeah, we have Canvas,
yeah.
but yeah.
I mean,
Which is
you gotta
for
make it, you gotta give us, you gotta give
There
us
are
some
cities that
ability.
build their own, like Fossil, Oregon is an example, the city built a senior adult complex. So there are some cities that do that, but I'm not saying that we as a city should go out and build a 55 and up community center or something.
Right.
And that's where, you know, you have to kind of give some pushback and say, what you're talking about is included in there, it's just not the wording, senior adult. Because it talks about smaller affordable housing,
And ADUs.
and
So, Michelle, are
ADUs.
you uncomfortable with the number, new number 8 worded the way that I was suggesting?
Well, the number 8, the wording, I don't understand the difference between senior and elderly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mind having it in there. I don't mind, but I don't know how I'm going to demonstrate that I explore that. I mean, we have one coming into town. Do I get to say I explored that?
Yes.
Do I get to?
How do we encourage it if we can't explore it? How do we, what do we do to promote it and make it more
Well, there's a lot in
attractive?
here about promote building accessory dwelling units, incentives for developers to build smaller,
True.
affordable housing.
Working with nonprofits.
Work with nonprofits
All
that
of those
subsidize
things.
affordable housing. I mean, those are things that you can actually see that we do.
And again, that number 7, even though it's in the exploratory stage, if you can figure out a way to get access to that tax credit program that will work for Crestwell, that would provide money to build.
Explore expansion of manufactured home park to increase affordable housing. We can work with the ones in town to do that. But it's important to me that whatever is down here is something that is actionable.
Measurable.
Yep.
And you're right, you're spot on, but I think it's also important, like we just said, to call that out.
But-
But then how do we do that? I don't know, but I think.
Why aren't you calling out homeless people? Why aren't you calling out the disabled people? Why aren't you calling out the single mother who has children? Why aren't you calling out, there's lots of people who need affordable housing, not just seniors and elderly. And the seniors and elderly, some of these strategies will help them.
So you're saying they're all included in the subsidized affordable housing in some way?
In some ways.
Yeah.
Well, and I think pointing it out, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And I think the ADUs are going to be granny houses. They're going to be small little houses that mother-in-laws can live in, their mother-in-law residences.
Right.
I think,
Except for the people who grow old and don't have children who live in Crestwell.
but those will be rentals.
But you'll go where your kids are and you'll nanny
Well,
your
maybe.
grandkids in an
But I
ADU
mean,
while you're.
I've talked to senior adults
children's
who live in Crestwell who've said to me, I live here, I want to retire here. I cannot because it's time for me to sell my home, it's too big. So I go into an apartment, I don't need Crestwell Care Center.
Yeah.
I don't have that need. I just need a facility like what Cottage Grove might have, or Eugene, that is an apartment complex for senior adults with some social activities in the cafeteria. I just need something like that to go into, and there's nothing in Crestwell.
And that's-
So I have to
I
go to
think that's number
Eugene or
3.
Cottage Grove to find that.
That's working with nonprofits to subsidize affordable housing.
Well, and that's number 2. Exploring appropriate relationships. If you have on your radar, if you have on your radar, your staff does, that there's gaps in Crestwell, whatever those gaps are, then as opportunities come up, you're saying, hey, here's a developer and here's a gap. Boy, let's work with that developer.
And I have a heart for seniors who want to live here. But the truth of the matter is, we're not a senior-friendly environment. We're not a walking-friendly environment. We don't have a grocery store that they can walk to. Maybe they can walk to the library. Maybe they can walk to a dentist, because we do have some dentists in good locations. Can they walk to their doctor? Can they walk to recreation? Do we have a senior center? We don't have a senior center. I mean, when we talk about what we have here for seniors, we're really way behind.
For seniors, we have wonderful facilities for seniors who are in good health and have finances.
Yeah, and can
And
drive,
that showed by what's happened on the east side of Crestwell.
and can drive.
People who are mobile, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, we have gaps, but we have a number of housing gaps in Crestwell.
We
And
do.
senior adults is just one.
That is.
If we leave it as it is with taking out the word in the goal statement, families, and changing it to people, the goal statement and the 7 objectives that are there are all encompassing of addressing all of the different
so.
types of housing needs that exist. You're just, each of the objectives adds a different kind of action or approach that you could take that could affect all groups or some groups.
So are we thumbs up on that one? As stated?
The way I stated it,
With the 1 through
Community,
7?
And then it
with
would
the 1
be,
through 7 and.
I would agree with the 1 through 7.
And the
Not
one
add-
small
But not the
change.
1 through 8.
right, 1 through 7.
Yeah.
And families to people.
Michelle makes
Yep.
a good
I
point.
agree.
1 through 7
And we'll
is
change,
fine.
we'll change families to people, so that's all encompassing.
That works.
All right, I think so.
Are we ready to move to robust and sustainable infrastructure?
Yes. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about the wastewater treatment.
Yeah, so that there might need to be an addition here, but.
After Cliff's memo, we have to start over.
So the goal statement, plan, fund, and continuously improve Crestwell's infrastructure to provide clean drinking water, effective wastewater and stormwater management, a walkable community, and well-maintained roads and airport for generations to come. So the 7,
So on those 7, the only comment that I would have is that 1 and 7 are essentially the same thing. And I think that we
oh,
should,
yes, based on your committee's work, yes, absolutely, those can be combined.
And I would rather combine them as being
Yes.
establishing a road funding mechanism because the fee is just one
Yes.
of the mechanisms.
Agreed.
And how about if we add the word establish a sustainable road funding mechanism? That was pointed out tonight, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. And after Cliff's detailed report to you regarding the new information from DEQ and the permitting process, we probably need a new objective here related to wastewater treatment. I'm not sure, Michelle, have you thought about what that objective might be? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, we do have explore
We have it,
low-interest
don't-
loans for wastewater infrastructure.
Yeah.
But it needs to be broader than that.
Would it be-
We need to look at,
Would it be update the wastewater master plan?
I don't know that we're going to update the wastewater master plan so much as we may amend.
Okay, yeah, because he said that one part of it had to be redone.
Did he leave?
Yay.
I mean, we do have under performance indicators, complete permitting, which encompasses all these challenges that Cliff
True.
explained to us.
That's a very good point.
It is
The only thought
under
is,
the indicator.
do we need any, and Michelle, I just looked to you to say.
I would
do we
say
need an
explore
objective?
all avenues for revenue for wastewater infrastructure,
Okay. For
not just low-interest loans.
Right. For wastewater infrastructure.
Do we want to include in there something along the line of review and amend as needed, the wastewater master plan?
How about update the the wastewater master plan as needed? Gosh, there's so much though.
But you would do that anyway. You could say that for the transportation plan. You could say that for everything as needed.
We're saying this is a 5-year strategic plan for the city. So we're saying if this is a 5-year plan for the city, one of the things that we have to do, that you're going to be responsible, is to
Update the wastewater plan to comply with permits.
There you
And
go.
that's gonna happen anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna happen anyway.
I think the key one is the revenue sources, Michelle. Because you will update the wastewater plan to comply with DEQ permitting. But the thing that really matters is that you can find a way to fund whatever DEQ is gonna require. And we don't know what that is yet, but it's gonna cost a lot of money.
Here comes Cliff.
Timely that you were here. Can I make a little statement?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in the beginning, where Mayor Stram suggested we change the order of our guiding principles, in reading through this yesterday, I think our strategic priorities and draft goal statements should also be rearranged.
Yeah. We didn't
So I
put them
kind
in
of
any
picked that
particular
up
order.
yesterday when I was reading. I don't think, even though I'm a real estate agent and it benefits me to have more houses to sell, I don't think affordable housing is our top priority at the city. I'm just gonna say that out there. I'm just gonna put that out there. I think the sustainable infrastructure, economic development, there's other things that should be first. So I just wanted to say that now as we're going
Then
through
we'll
this
save that
section.
for the end, and then you can make your pitch.
Oh, I don't care the order, I just think, that that's not our number one.
Cliff, we have a question on the table.
Good point, Tammy.
We were talking about whether or not an additional objective was needed regarding the report that you gave this evening, and one change Michelle suggested, which is a good one, to objective number 2, is to say, explore all avenues for revenue for wastewater infrastructure. So we modified number 2. Are there any other objectives that you think should be in the plan related to what's coming up with the permitting?
Well, I don't know that loans really encompass everything. I would say funding.
That's what we did. All avenues for revenue for funding wastewater infrastructure.
All avenues of funding.
Yeah.
All avenues of funding for wastewater infrastructure, yeah. Would you add any other objectives, Cliff, that would need to be documented in the strategic plan related to the DEQ permitting and what's going to be required for that?
I don't think we're far enough down the road to be
Okay.
able to compartmentalize which and what we would be funding. I think wastewater infrastructure is all encompassing, so that could take in whatever the needs are. So I think that's fine.
Okay.
Do we need to say anything about updating the wastewater master plan to comply with the DEQ permitting?
Under performance indicators?
Do we need to say that anywhere?
No, we were under objectives. As part of-
Or performance indicators, either way.
I think that's a step in wastewater infrastructure, what we're going to be doing for our upgrades. I think that's a step, so I think that ought to be under indicators of
Okay,
complete,
Something we're going to be doing in the next 5 years.
yes.
so how did you state that, Michelle? Update the wastewater plan?
To comply with DEQ permitting requirements.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, of facilities plan.
The wastewater facilities plan.
Okay. Okay.
Jim looks like he's got a question.
Anything more on robust and sustainable infrastructure? Jim.
Well, that made me think about the horizon of completing the permitting DEQ. Is that this is a 5-year plan, correct? And are we gonna be there at that point? Yes?
We're going to be there in a couple of weeks.
But we're gonna amend, and then we're gonna.
Aren't we, Cliff? Aren't we going to be there in July?
We're going to have something to review in a couple of weeks. I don't know when it'll be finalized and done, but I would say in the next 30 to 60 days, we should have a permit.
I still think that's a relevant performance indicator,
Having a permit?
completing that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't take it out, that's what I'm saying.
What are you saying to me, Michelle?
Well, I wouldn't remove it, I'd leave it in there, is what I'm saying. Okay, are you ready to move to economic
So
development?
I only had one question. This is
Yep.
under performance indicators. What does it mean footage of new sidewalk installed?
the amount of footage of we would measure the footage of
New
sidewalk
that's
installed.
Okay, that makes sense now.
As part of our robust and sustainable infrastructure because we have need for sidewalk.
That makes sense. I just didn't understand the wordage, so that makes sense.
You could measure the footage of sidewalk installed instead of just.
As long as we all understand what that means, it's fine.
It's an incomplete sentence.
Yeah, we can say
It's okay,
measure.
there's no period after.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a sentence, it's a bullet point.
It's a bullet
So
point.
the indicator is the footage.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, right, the indicator is the footage, yep. I get it now, I just wasn't sure.
Hopefully over the next 5 years, we'll have some more sidewalks.
We're gonna put it out.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we can talk about what number 4 is, because I don't know what that means.
Oh, yeah,
Explore
that's a good
possible use
question.
of a fee in lieu funding structure.
That is a way of funding things. Okay, we were talking about using it and a bald knob. So we're talking about putting in a street. And so we're talking about people who want to develop in Bald Knob would pay a fee in lieu of. So they would pay for a portion of the street in lieu of paying for LID, or it's a that's not a good example. It's a fee in lieu of. It's a fee in lieu of doing something. So instead of saying, okay, so you have to put in 20 feet of asphalt, you would say you're going to pay a fee in lieu. So we get the money, and then when everybody along the street is all ready for the street to be done, they've all paid a fee in lieu of actually, because what we do is we make developers put in the streets themselves. So a fee in lieu would be paying upfront for, and Cliff is clearing his throat, so he might have something to add. Some explanation.
No, it just
No?
was coincidence, he
Oh,
said.
it was a coincidence. Okay. But that's what it is, a fee in lieu of sidewalk, curb, gutter. It's almost like an LID, because I'll be paying a fee in lieu of putting it in myself. I'll be paying an LID to put in sidewalk, curb, and gutter.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
It's mostly comes from an engineering term or process, and Michelle explained basically exactly how it is, but instead of having somebody come in and do incremental parts of an improvement, you would have them pay up front, and then the city would hold that money. That way you could do a complete project instead of slicing up into small bits, and you'd get a better project.
So you don't get lines in your street.
Does that help? Excellent.
So, yeah, we're going to look at possible use of fee in lieu funding structure for Bald Knob. We could even say that. We could add for Bald Knob on there if you wanted to. I can't think of, we're not talking about it for anywhere else, are we, Cliff?
Not that I can think of, but I don't know if you'd want to
Be
pigeonhole
that
it to just one
specific?
spot.
Yeah,
It might be.
4 years down the road, it might be a different scenario, and other than just pointing to one place.
It's just a revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right, everybody good to go on? All right.
Economic development. So here's the business-focused one. Expand business and industry in Crestwell so residents have access to job opportunities, prosperity, goods and services, and revenue is generated to sustain the community and city government. That came from that logic model the mayor had us do at the retreat. Any thoughts about the objectives listed there?
I notice a lot of depends upon rain.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
I would say just grammatically, we should probably, the first time we mention rain
Yes.
is when we should have that
Yeah.
parenthetical of,
Yeah.
here's what that means.
And it is defined down under performance indicators, but I agree it should be right at the top.
Yep, agreed.
The other thing I noticed is adopt the city's economic development strategic plan. Now, that's in the works right now, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a draft.
Okay.
And it would have been on the agenda tonight, except for the fact that we had enough on the agenda tonight, and also the person who was going to present it caught COVID,
Oh,
and so.
okay.
Oh, and number 8 is, those are inserted in the wrong place. 6 through 8 are not objectives, those are performance indicators. I apologize for that.
Oh, okay.
Those are actual things that RAIN measures. I met with their director. So 6 through 8 should move down into the performance indicators.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that.
The other thing I noticed is that hiring of another staff person, economic development coordinator. We haven't had anybody specifically in that role since the young man who was here.
Since
Michael?
Michael was here.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's really it makes a difference having a person who focuses solely on economic development. I don't know when we'll hire them. I don't know if it'll be next year or in the 5th year, but we're, with the economic development plan that we're putting together and then the strategic plan outlined here, I think we need a person.
Would there be
Who
any,
has some background and experience.
will we want to just keep what we're doing with RAIN going that whole time and then bring that person in and supplement and just, we wouldn't back off RAIN, would we?
No.
Yeah.
No, I think they work together.
Mhm.
RAIN is much more regional in its approach, and we need somebody specific, I think, to look at.
So we wouldn't look to shift resources from one to the other, we would want both.
I don't think so. One is for entrepreneurs and small business startups and helping people who have small business, really small business. The other is to look at the overall strategy and try to attract a grocery store, to try to attract, to try and do some of the economic development things that we need to do, some infrastructure things that we need to do to attract economic development. So they're really two different disciplines.
It's true. And I guess I know that after Michael left, we kind of were sort of happy that RAIN was able to at least kind of fill some of that gap. But
Yeah.
you're right, not by a long shot in some areas. And I guess theoretically, investment in an economic coordinator will yield more, it should be perpetual, hopefully. So.
I might look at bringing on someone from, what's that other program that we've used so much? Not RAIN.
The U of O's?
Huh?
Rare?
Rare, thank you, Sherry.
Rare.
Yeah, RARE. Bring in a RARE person to do some economic development and then maybe develop it from there.
Yeah.
To have, a downtown association develop and then maybe work out from there. I don't know, but we do need some economic development assistance.
So would that be maybe what we could add as one of the objectives here is consider bringing a rare intern on?
Instead of the coordinator?
No.
I would rather just leave it as a coordinator right now
Okay.
and incrementally work my way up to it.
It might be a rare person that we eventually hire, which we did before with both Michael and with
Maya.
Maya and with who we
Maddie?
just lost, Maddie. They were all rare interns who came from U of O for a year, and we hired all of them eventually. They were so good.
I hired Maddie, or I had Maddie for planning, but Maya and Michael were for economic development. And Maya's still doing economic development.
Yep. Yeah, we've had good success with our rare interns in recent years. Yeah. I'm good with this one.
Okay.
Anybody else?
That's good.
Good. Next one.
Safety for all. Provide public safety so that everyone in Crestwell feels safe and can enjoy and participate in the community. Businesses can thrive, and the city can respond and coordinate with other communities in a natural disaster. And there are 8 objectives listed there.
So I'm going to throw this out there. Provide public service safety so that everyone in Crestwell feels safe. I think that's an impossible goal. It's based on my feeling, and we'll never get there. And I think if we just took it out, provide public safety so that everyone in Crestwell can enjoy and participate in the community business and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'd love to have everybody feel safe, but that's not really my goal in providing public safety. It's to make sure that we have the officers we can afford to have, who are doing the job that we've asked them to do as well as they can do it. And I hope you feel safe, but you may not. But still, we as a council want to make sure we've got the officers and they're doing the job we've asked them to do, so that people can participate. And if you feel safe too, yay!
Right. I think that's a good point.
There's times I'm safe that I just don't feel safe.
Yeah, right?
So that's my own thought there.
But I think, on the other hand, we want the small town community feel safe. It feels safe. Now, I'm not saying that we should leave it in here because I think it improves it by removing it. But I do think that feeling safe is an important thing. I feel safe here. I feel safe walking to my car. I feel safe walking down the road. I feel safe at the park. You know, it's a beautiful thing that we have here. I don't feel safe in other places. I don't know that I would feel safe in Portland right now. I don't know that I would feel safe in Salem right now. You know,
And I've talked to people who say, I do not feel safe even walking in Crestwell because of how many times I almost got hit crossing a road.
Oh, goodness.
well, there is that.
That's
yeah.
not
Yep.
Well, but I
And I've
think-
had people who say, I don't feel safe walking at night in Crestwell.
Oh,
So
really?
through the years, I've had
never
many
heard that.
people tell me, I don't feel safe walking.
I think it's wonderful to be a single woman and be able to walk around Crestwell at night.
I
I
agree.
think it is too, but I had people
My dog.
who said all those things to me. I was in Portland over the weekend, moving my daughter in downtown Portland
Yeah.
Poor thing.
yeah. So she's gonna work downtown Portland, and she's so thrilled to have a studio apartment in a building that's over 100 years old. I didn't particularly feel safe. I was safe, but I didn't feel it. And I drove away thinking, is my daughter safe here? She may actually be really safe. But do I as a father feel like she's safe?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Those are two different things.
Yeah, feeling safe is a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Well, I think what the spirit behind that, Michelle, is in both your mission statement, it's also in the vision statement. Because in your mission statement, you say, creating a safe, livable,
Yeah.
attractive community. And then in the vision statement, we start out by saying Crestwell is a safe, friendly, and inclusive community.
Yeah, right off the bat.
So
Yeah.
I think that
Both of them.
gets at the spirit of it, and the only way you can measure that feeling of safety is if you do a regular community survey, where you survey your community members every year or every other year about how safe they feel in different parts of the community. And that's a big undertaking, and it's really costly. It's very expensive.
I mean, you could take the word feels out and you could put the word is in. So
No,
that everyone in Crestwell is safe and enjoys participation. You
Well,
could
is
take-
safe, I think, is a higher,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I
You're in
think
the
that's
same boat, same.
that's-
yeah.
yeah. I think take
Yeah,
it
same
out,
thing.
but I just had to say what I had to say.
So the way it would read with that change would be provide public safety so that everyone in Crestwell can enjoy and participate in the community. Businesses can thrive, and the city can respond and coordinate with other communities in a natural disaster. Okay, I'm seeing heads nod.
And I like that you pointed out that safe is here and it's in the vision both.
Yeah.
So that we're clearly saying we value safety.
Well, and you said that in your retreat, that went up on the wall on the sticky notes. And there was a big discussion about it amongst the team in their retreat. So I think it works. You've got it as safety for all as a strategic priority, and it's a key word in both your mission and vision statements.
And it's the number one objective here, public safety fee.
Yeah, I think number 2 of the objectives should be number 1, but that's just me.
You don't want number 1 to be number 1?
Correct. I don't think public safety fee should be number 1. Maybe it should say continue to contract police services and fund them. Or no.
Continue to fund police services.
Yeah, continue to
Yeah.
fund police services. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
Because we fund-
our objective is not to charge a fee. Our objective is to get the
It's a
services.
nicer way, it's a
Yeah.
nicer way of saying
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
Well,
I guess.
do we need an adjective to continue to adequately fund?
That's a performance indicator, and that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
It is a performance indicator.
Yeah.
Continue to
adequately fund.
Adequately fund police services.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 moves down and it becomes a performance indicator.
Law enforcement services,
Law
not,
en- that's right.
not policing.
Yeah, law
Oh, yes,
enforcement.
that's a good point.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Rest of those objectives, 2 through 8.
Well, is one of them something we've done, and maybe it's under partnerships, but the program that trains teenagers, Teen Cert,
Sir, yeah?
and that's a partnership with the fire department, right?
Yeah, but we don't have control over that.
Okay,
It's a wonderful program, and they've expanded it now to be regular cert. But with COVID, they stopped doing it, but I think they're going to start up again as soon as COVID is,
so I mean, that would be a partnership
that would be a partnership.
with the local first responders. That means fire department.
Yeah, so that could
Primarily.
be maintain a partnership. We don't have that? Oh, yeah, we have
Continue partnerships. One of the areas is the fire department's talked about building a new facility here in Crestwell. So I don't know where that's at, but that conversation started years ago. So I don't know whether we want to put that as an objective or just so that it stays on our plate. I don't know.
It more depends on when they're gonna go out for the bond.
Okay. And that's a partnership with a local first responder.
Yeah, partnership with local first responders also is National Night Out.
Yes.
So we have several partnerships with them.
Yeah.
Partnership with first responders is our contract with the county. It's also with the county's emergency preparedness coordinator. So that covers a lot of ground, that one.
So the performance indicator, year-over-year crime by type trended, what does that mean?
So that means that we don't know what this will show, but we thought it was good to at least look at it. So you as the council would get a report from your contracted law enforcement, Lane County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff's Department. They would report to you annually the rate of crime by type, and then you would trend that over time. So annually, you would get this report, and you would see what happens with crime over time. You wouldn't know right away whether or not you need to do anything about it. You'd have to track it for a few years, right? Maybe 3 years before you could maybe see a trend.
You do get a
Yeah.
Month
one
to month.
already,
Yeah,
once a
and
month, yeah.
they already have all that data.
Yes,
We
they
just-
have the
We just
data.
they haven't compiled a year.
That's right.
a
We would
year.
give you an
Yeah.
annual report instead of a month, in addition to the monthly report.
I really like that because one of the long-term things that has happened for many years in Crestwell and continues is the whole question of adequate policing in Crestwell. You know, we did a study with Portland State University, two of them actually, two studies, but one a number of years ago, and we regularly have that conversation. Do we need our own? Do we continue with Lane? Is there another option? So for us to have a year-by-year thing, in a sense, puts it on the table every year, that the council needs to look at this and continue that conversation. So I like that idea as a performance indicator.
And you could actually use that to some sort of tool to actually put your thumb on.
Right.
Are we actually safe
Yes.
in comparison to other cities our
But
size?
then we'd have to compare to other cities.
Yeah, yes, or to some, at least to give us a better idea of
Where
what's
we're
safe,
at.
what safe really looks like.
Well, and you'd know throughout the year, like right now, we have 2 vehicles that were stolen, that were left in parking in people's driveways unlocked. You know, and this is the time of year when we have higher theft than in other times of year. So you would be able to, those kinds of things would show up.
And how many RVs are burned up on the street?
One,
Yeah.
More than one.
there's been more than one?
Anyway, yeah, but that's a good thing to do.
Michelle, related to your comment on benchmarking, we have a justice and public safety practice in Barry Dunn. The person who heads it is a 3-time police chief from the Midwest. And I can simply ask her the question, is there any source of benchmarking that she could point to that wouldn't create a big body of work for you
Yeah,
all?
well, we'd want to benchmark against local jurisdictions. We'd want to
Exactly.
benchmark against Cottage Grove
Pleasant Hill.
Junction City,
and Junction City and Coburg and
Bonita.
Veneta, we
That's
should
the
be
same
able to.
services. Yeah, we should
We should
be-
be able to do Veneta, no problem.
Yeah.
So Cottage Grove, Junction City, Veneta, any others?
Coburg you mentioned.
Coburg? And all of that data should be
Oak
readily
Ridge.
available.
I wish we could get it against Pleasant Hill. I wish we could get numbers for Pleasant Hill.
But that would come from the county,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you can always ask,
I don't
right?
know if they segregate Pleasant Hill out.
Could ask them.
As a zip code,
Dexter,
yeah.
Okay,
Fall Creek.
Okay, anything else under this item? Are we ready to go to number,
the last one.
community education outreach?
Yep. Provide Crestville community members with access to informational resources and activities that create increased volunteerism, community pride, and reinforce the city's small-town feel. You'll see there's a highlighted one there. We felt like we had to have a placeholder for a council objective, for something that you as a council would do, or council members would do, related to community education and outreach. So we didn't know what your thoughts might be on that, so we just put a placeholder for it.
So the one thing I would add, but I'm not sure how I would word it, some of the community education outreach that I think we talked about was people regularly have misinformation about the water bill. That's a big deal in Crestwell. So that's community education, but it's not education that increases volunteerism, community pride, or reinforces our small town feel. It's education that, informs, but it's an informational resources that,
Create awareness and understanding.
You could add that, create
very good.
awareness and understanding of city services.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
At
ahead.
the break, Jim and I were talking about an idea to change it from being called, and we both said we couldn't remember exactly what it said on our bills, but instead of it saying utility bill, does it say city services invoice, or doing some sort of educational piece? Because it just keeps coming up that we pay for police on utility bill, we pay for police on utility bill, and maybe it shouldn't be called a utility bill. Maybe we need to change that mindset and do a education on, it's a city services bill. invoice or,
Well, one way you could
Whatever.
reword this would be informational resources and activities that, and the first one could be provides, we already have the word information, that provides information about city services, creates increased volunteerism. Somehow I want to get the idea of, and then it would come underneath one of the objectives, is that one of our specific and ones I put down was the basic, people are always wondering about the basic user fee. Why do I pay this much when I